You're fucking
I now call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association Student Senate to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to begin our Student Senate meeting taking place on Thursday, January 27, 2022 with a land acknowledgement. We recognize that Kansas State University, as the first land-grant institution, stands on the ancestral lands of the Kaw people. Our state of Kansas is home to 4 federally recognized Native nations: the Iowa, Kickapoo, Prairie Band Potawatomi, and Sac and Fox. We must remember that the land serving as the foundation for this institution was and still is stolen land acquired by white settlers. We pledge our commitment to creating decolonized spaces at the university while advocating for the support and future success of Indigenous faculty, staff, and students at K-State. And with that, we'll go ahead and enter into first roll call.
Thanks so much, Blake, and it's nice to see everyone. Bannister. Barron.
Here.
Here.
Bellamy.
Here.
Binkley. Blood.
Here.
Booze.
Here.
Kahlo. Chapas. Compton.
Here.
Cranford.
Here.
Croslow.
Here.
DeMott.
Here.
Doc.
Here.
Dunlap.
Here.
Encero.
Here.
Esslinger. Buss.
Here.
Gann.
Here.
Glasscock.
Here.
Hotzel.
Here.
Jambunathan.
Here.
Coloriquion.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
Pope.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
Lister. Long.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Marquez. Mayor.
Here.
McPhee. Nelson.
Here.
Pineda Gomez.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Presser.
Present.
Richenberg.
Here.
Riffle.
Here.
Rook.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Salmon.
Here.
Scharnhorst.
Here.
Shear.
Here.
Schindler.
Here.
Splekel.
Here.
Stout.
Here.
Sitzma.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Wallace. Warren.
Here.
Willis Jackson.
Here.
And Willis Reese. Alrighty, thanks so much.
Alrighty. With that, we will go ahead and move into first open period. And first up, we have Advisor Ferris with a first open period presentation.
Sure, I prefer one. I don't know about y'all, but I hate sitting at a desk. I hate standing at a podium. All the things. Welcome back, everyone. It is so good to see your faces. Most of the face, anyways. I wanted to give a quick update on our student organization policy review because I know that has been a big question and a big area of interest from this group and others across campus over the last several semesters. So shouldn't take too long. I will leave some space for you all. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them. I will preface this entire presentation by saying you will learn nothing about what will actually happen. So yay. We'll give you some context and give you some background information and next steps, but you will not walk out of here knowing what's happening with our student organization policy. So that's exciting to know. So thank you, Ms. Airy. So a little bit of background for those of you that may not be familiar with what this process has been about. Back in 2020, which seems like forever ago, in the fall of 2020, the Action Plan for a More Inclusive K-State was established. As part of that action plan, one of the items that was included was a review of all university policies, or a review of select, university policies to examine for bias or discrimination. The student organization policy was one of those policies that was identified. So that's where this all started. We had a working group that was stood up in the fall of 2020. Some of you in this room may have been on that working group at the very beginning. And that group really focused on some immediate actions. What are things that we can address in this moment as quickly as possible? So in the spring of 2021, we submitted a phase 1 proposal for changes to Provost Tabor and to President Myers, and that proposal was accepted and implemented at the end of the spring 2021 semester. So what did that look like? It changed. Again, not really much about student organizations and the structure and relationship that we have with them, but it did change how we advertise or share the registration status of organizations. And it also clarified the timeline for registration and some other more process-oriented things, so we could very clearly say, these groups are registered, these groups are not, because that was a big question that had come up, which kind of started the action plan. So after phase 1 was proposed and adopted, we resumed our work again this fall. Marta and Vedant have served on that work group this semester. And we really wanted to look more closely at the structure itself. And what we realized about 3 meetings into the semester, maybe not even that, 2 meetings into the semester, maybe, Marta, we realized, wow, this is not the group who should really be looking at this. So instead, we opted to stand up a sub-work group, and that group was established in October of this last fall. It included faculty, staff, students, so Parker and Marissa both served on it. Who else? Tess Garvin, Michael Arnold, a lot others, Matt Kuckelman, some others, students, and then we also had some stakeholders from our community as well serve on that group. And that sub-work group was specifically to focus on just the structural relationship between student organizations and the university. That was their sole purpose to meet. That group, yay, finished their work last week. And so now the larger work group will come together on Monday to review the work from that smaller group. So very confusing. How many of you are confused by which group is doing what and all the groups reporting to who? Me too. But nonetheless, the larger main working group as part of the action plan will meet on Monday to review what the proposal is, and we'll go from there. So that's the background. The task that the sub-work group was given was, again, to identify at least 3 different structural relationship structures between university and organizations, determine what are some pros and cons, positives and negatives for each of those options, consider any resources, so financial, personnel, anything else that we could dream up, office space, and then also consider how the code of conduct and how PPM 3010 would apply. How many of you actually know what ppm 3010 is? Yay, like 3 of you. So ppm 3010 is the university's anti-discrimination, sexual harassment. It's a really long title, but that essentially captures most of what's in 3010. Title 9. I was a big part of that. All right, Ari. So I'm going to walk through each of the 3 structures that the group is putting forward as options. Again, we have no idea which of these options are actually going to be selected, but I want you to at least have an understanding of where the group is coming from in putting these forward. So the first option is to just keep what we've got. Keep an ISO DSO structure. We could adjust some of the things, so some of the pieces of that structure, but generally the ISO DSO would maintain. You can see there are some positives and negatives. Obviously, you can maintain some autonomy for those groups that are ISOs. On the flip side of that, there's some processes that don't really work for DSOs. It's confusing for some folks, or a lot of folks, internal and external. And it also, for the university perspective, it allows some separation for ISO activity of the liability question, right? Conduct and ppm application there, it's going to remain in this proposal, would remain the same as what it is now, which, by the way, most students don't know what the current application of that is. So ppm 3010 is on-campus incidences only. Conduct is on-campus or university-sponsored events. So that's kind of how the current application runs. Obviously, the fastest timeline process. Resources, I say minimal, because it's just adequately staffing and funding the offices as they currently are. Not a lot changing in option 1. Option 2 is to eliminate any designation at all. We looked at this in 2 different perspectives. The first perspective being we essentially create all independent organizations by separating every group, regardless of who you are and what you do, that you would essentially become an ISO entirely across the board for all groups. I'll be happy to share. Not a single one of our committee members was interested in that option. So we eliminated that essentially as an option. So in this sense, when we talk about eliminating a designation, what we're talking about is we're bringing all organizations under some control of the university. So think of it as everyone would become a DSO, but not really a DSO, because we would have to redefine what is a DSO, okay? Some positives, consistency, imagine that. Every group's gonna get treated the same resources, support, so on and so forth. Eliminating some confusion, because everybody's the same. Some of the negative sides of that, you may lose some autonomy. There's a possibility of that. Increasing some of the institutional liability of it. And then what we think is some groups may just say, I'm not interested. So if you think about like the chess club, not to pick on the chess club, but the chess club may be like, you know what? I'm not interested in getting your benefits, and I don't want to be a part of those controls, so I'm just not going to register. And if we don't register organizations, then students can't find out about them, can't get involved in them. We also have the potential of some behavior going underground. No one wants that either, so there's that. Conduct and ppm 3010 application, chances are in this structure option, there would be some significant change to how those are applied, and the university is going to have to make a pretty hard decision about where do we draw a line. So there is the potential that it would open the door to any and all behavior, no matter where it happens, no matter who does it, where it's at, if it's part of a group, it may get included. Timeline, intermediate at best. So again, we can apply the process across the board for all groups. And as you can probably imagine, it's gonna likely require some significant personnel increases, and in turn, some financial resources to help support that from happening. The last one is finding somewhere in the middle. And so in this option, what we would do, or what the group is proposing, is that we would maintain the same version or very similar to what we have of ISO DSO, but we would create additional designations, so like a ABC, for groups based on their need. So the biggest benefit of this is being able to meet groups where they are, provide them the resources and the support that they need, also require certain accountability out of them and certain expectations out of them as well. As you can imagine, that may get confusing. For example, University of Michigan has 6 designations. That is one of the most confusing student organization policies I've ever read. And then again, if we're bringing some groups in, there's some murkiness. There's always that institutional liability question that may be out there. Same thing with Code of Conduct and PPM 3010. Likely has the chance of opening the door wider to what could be considered under Code of Conduct or PPM 3010 jurisdiction. As you can imagine, this is probably going to be the lengthiest of timelines. As one of our committee members put it, I like the idea, but I have no idea what it would look like. Like, we can't even imagine what it is because there's a lot of questions that would have to get answered about how does this get set up. And again, likely a lot of significantly more staff and in turn, more financial resources as well. Last slide. So where do we go from here? This, like I said, the larger work group that Murda and Vedant and others are on will meet on Monday to review all of this. They will then formulate their official recommendation. That recommendation will go forward to the action plan committee for review, so we'll report up to Provost Tabor. And then from Provost Tabor and his group, it will report up to President Linton and Cabinet. President Linton comes in a couple of weeks. And so it'll go to Cabinet and him for final review and a decision. So what does that mean? We may not know what's going to happen with the student organization policy before the end of May. So, real realistic with you. I know for some folks this is like really passionate work for you. And so that's probably really devastating to hear. It's very devastating to some of us to hear as well, but just to put it in real time and what we're talking about. That's all I've got, but I'll open it up for questions if you have any.
Are there any questions for Advisor Ferris? Chair Harmon.
Can you just help walk through and list out some of the resources that DSOs do have access to over, say, ISOs?
Yes, great question. Thanks for testing me. So DSOs, because they are considered the university, they have access to anything a university department has access to. So they can use the name, they can use the logo of the university, they can use motor pool, which for some organizations, that's a big deal, instead of renting cars. They can have websites on the university web server. They have an advisor. They have to have an advisor. They have university financial accounts and processes. So for some, that's a real challenge. But for others, it's a great benefit because there's no one student responsible for the financials of an organization. That's some of the main ones. ISOs have none of those things. So they are essentially a Girl Scout troop down the street. It's the equivalent, yeah. Good question, Max.
Attorney General Hobbs.
Hi, Kelly. I was just wondering, there's a lot of pieces on there about the Student Code of Conduct.
Yeah.
So just in general, with any outside changes and expanding the breach of the code, a lot of cases go through student life and it is completely understaffed at the moment.
Yes.
Is there any initiatives to hire more staff in that area?
That is the question of the hour, Annalie. And that's why those last two options under resources say that significant more staffing would be needed, not just for the Office of Student Life, who would potentially handle a higher caseload if there's an expanded jurisdiction, but also the Center for Student Involvement, because we will now have not 200 organizations but we may have 4, 5, or 600 student organizations. That also means the care office. That means the Office of Institutional Equity. That may even mean K-State Police. That may mean other offices and departments across campus may need additional personnel to make sure that we're supporting those options or that structure. What we don't want to happen is to create a structure and not have the staffing to support it, because that will get us in a way worse situation than we are now and where we have ever been. So yes, it's a huge, huge piece for us.
Like, may I ask a follow-up?
Granted.
Excellent. Another piece that I have heard being talked before about through upper administration is the idea that the student review board, one element of the judicial branch, would be moved to the Office of Student Life, just because that is a cleaner transition and more relevant in some cases than the student review board is to SGA. Do you have any opinion or knowledge of that? I'm just genuinely curious.
Yeah, that's not something we spoke about in this work group, but that's not to say that those conversations may not be happening elsewhere.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Senator Booz.
Yeah, especially in the second case where every organization basically becomes a departmental-ish organization. How does that impact organizations that are currently ISOs that would engage in political speech? And now, would that still be considered part of the university now, or is there something different that would happen with those?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, something we didn't talk about specifically. The one thing that I want to make sure everyone knows is we talked about very broad ideas and did not get into a lot of specifics, because if we did, we would go down rabbit holes and y'all would not see me for 6 more years. Because there's a lot of complexities and details, that being one of them. As the subject matter experts in student organizations on that, I would say that political organizations and religious groups are the two that we would have to look real close at if option 2 is the direction that we went in, because the separation of church and state, how does that work? The political question, do we want to endorse, or by registering those organizations, is that in essence endorsing those beliefs, political ideologies, or whatever? So good questions that I don't have an answer to because we didn't get there, but it's certainly something that we would have to address if that's the option that we go in.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any further questions for Advisor Ferris? Seeing none, thank you so much, Kelly.
I'll be here all night.
Alrighty, with that, are there any further speakers for first open period tonight? All right, we will go ahead and move into approval of the minutes. The minutes were distributed on Tuesday along with the agenda and legislation tracking information. Are there any questions or corrections for the minutes? Seeing none, I will now seek a motion for the minutes. Chair Lynn.
I move to approve the minutes.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the minutes will now stand approved. We will go ahead and move on to announcements for the week. So first, if you haven't been vaccinated against COVID-19, please consider getting vaccinated, especially in this big Omicron peak. And please make sure that we're wearing our face coverings properly. And if we're eating and drinking, make sure we do that out in the foyer for Student Senate. Next, like I mentioned, Student Senate will continue in person, and anyone can join via Zoom if they wish, and please make sure to follow those protocols. Next, Sga election season has officially kicked off. If you're interested in running for a position within Sga next year, please view the following page for instructions on how to file, and if you have any questions about anything regarding elections, please reach out to our Elections Commissioner, Reed Cruson. Next, our proxies for this week. We have Gann for Holland, Insero for Fields, Kahlo for Marquez, Doc for Bain, Riffle for Heatherman, and Warren for Volgamore. Our SGA member of the week this week is Mason Prester. Mason did a ton of work updating the governing documents over winter break and really helped out the Senate Ops team with that endeavor. Thank you for your time and effort over your break, Mason. If we can get a round of applause. The Senate shout-out form is up above. On our calendar, we have all the normal stuff, but I wanted to point out that SCSO, that's the Special Committee on Strategic Oversight, that meets at 5 o'clock on Tuesdays if you're interested in checking out the work that's going on there. Next, finally, our quote of the week. Working hard for something we don't care about is called stressed. Working hard for something we love is called passion, and that's by Simone Sinek. Simon. I do that way too often. Alrighty. With that, we're going to go ahead and move into commendations. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 42? Ooh, Senator Pineda-Gomez.
Move to consider resolution 32.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded to consider the resolution. With that, will the author please come forward?
All right. Commendation to the Kansas State University meat judging team by me and Michael, sponsored by Eli, Bryson, and Parker. Whereas the Kansas State University meat judging team began competing in 1927, Kansas State is the only school in the nation that has competed at every international and American Royal contest since then. Whereas year after year, the KSU meat judging team successfully represents the College of Agriculture and Kansas State University in intercollegiate competitions across the nation. Whereas preparation for intercollegiate meat judging competitions is rigorous and consists of 5 a.m. start times, practicing every weekend and a full week leading up to the contest, and traveling to almost every major meat packing plant in the nation. Whereas competitions typically consist of beef quality and yield grading, cut specifications, and carcass and cuts judging for beef, pork, and lamb. In 2021, KSU meat judging team continued their history of success and even broke multiple records. The 2021 KSU meat judging team had the two highest team scores in the history of K-State, both of which were top 10 scores of all time in intercollegiate meat judging. The KSU meat judging team finished as the champion team at the American Royal and Iowa State contest, and reserve champion team at the Southwestern Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo contest and the International. Emily Albright was named the high individual overall at National, which is national champion. Whereas Emily Albright and Emily Glenn were both named first team All-Americans, and whereas every member of 2021 Kansas State meat judging team had a perfect 100-point score at the International in the specifications division and experienced varied individual successes throughout the season. Be it resolved that the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends the 2021 Kansas State meat judging team for its hard work and dedication, as well as its continued legacy of individual and team successes by finishing as 2021 reserve national champions, setting new record scores, and having multiple students named first team All-American. Upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the President, a copy will be sent to 2021 Kansas State University meat judging team, meat judging coach Dr. Travis O'Quinn, Department of Animal Sciences head Dr. Michael Day, College of Agriculture Dean Dr. Ernest Minton, and incoming University President Dr. Richard Linton.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Seeing none, I will now seek a motion on Resolution 42. Senator Compton.
I move to approve resolution 42 unanimously.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 42 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 42 will now stand approved. All right, next up we'll move into appointments for the evening. And first up we have Resolution 43. Is there a motion to consider? Chair Solomon.
I move to consider resolution 43. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 43. Will the author please come forward?
Hi, everyone. Oh, God, I'm on Zoom tonight, but I'm going to read it. So this is Resolution 21-2243, approval of new student senators. Authors me, sponsors the Senate Operations Committee. Whereas there are currently 4 vacancies for the position of student senator for the College of Health and Human Sciences, whereas the list of candidates from the 2021 KSU Sga General Election has been exhausted, whereas Mia Schindler was nominated by the College of Health and Human Sciences College Council in its capacity to fill the vacancies, whereas there is currently 1 vacancy for the position of Faculty Senate Representative to Student Senate, and whereas J Cranford was nominated by the Faculty Senate President in their capacity to fill the vacancy. Be it resolved that Section 1, the following individual be approved as a student senator for the College of Health and Human Sciences, Mia Schindler, Section 2, the following individual be approved as the Faculty Senate Representative to Student Senate, J Cranford.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Seeing none, I will seek a motion on Resolution 43. Chair Lynn.
I move to approve Resolution 43 unanimously.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 43 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 43 will be approved. Mia and Jay, if you want to come down front, we can get you introduced to the body and get you sworn in. Alrighty. If you'll go ahead and raise your right hand and say, "I will" at the end. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of Student Senator and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association. Awesome. If you want to do name, major, hometown, and favorite smell, and then for you, what you do here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mia Schindler. I'm a family and consumer sciences education major, but housed in the Health and Human Sciences College. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and smell?
Yes, favorite smell.
I like the smell of peonies, like the flower.
Jerry J. Cranford. I am in the theater department. I teach here many things, and some of you have had in class. This is my 10th year here. I have no idea what you do here, but it will be interesting to find out. A new kind of theater. My favorite smell are my children once they're putting on their baby lotion after the showers.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Alrighty, with that, we will go ahead and move on to Resolution 44. Is there a motion to consider? Chair Salmon.
I move to consider Resolution 44.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 44. Will the author please come forward?
Sorry, guys. Okay, Resolution 21-2244, approval of Student-Centered Tuition Enhancement Committee members by Michael Dow, me, and Blake Phillips. Whereas the Student-Centered Tuition Enhancement Committee allocates approximately $600,000 in funding for seed money used for the creations and implementation of new programs or initiatives that will benefit the student body. Whereas the Speaker of Student Senate appoints 6 student senators to this committee, representing both different colleges and different standing committees. Whereas the student body president appoints 4 student at-large to serve on this committee. Whereas the Speaker of the Student Senate nominated Drew Bellamy, Marcus Kidd, Jacob Long, Peyton Lynn, Evan Porter, and RJ Salmon for this position. And whereas the student body president nominated Danielle Bachman, Ethan Brown, Jeff Ebeck, and Max Harmon for this position. Be it resolved that Section 1, the following individual be approved as member of the Student Senate Tuition Enhancement Committee. Drew Bellamy, Marcus Kidd, Jacob Long, Peyton Lynn, Evan Porter, RJ Salmon, Danielle Bachman, Ethan Brown, Jeff Ebeck, and Max Harmon.
All right, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Seeing none, I will seek a motion on Resolution 44. Senator Booz.
Move to approve Resolution 44 unanimously.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 44 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 44 will stand approved. Congratulations, everyone. All right, we will now move into committee reports for the night. Are there any committee chairs who would like to give a report? Chair Lynn.
So ready. Okay, hello everybody. We have currently had 3 meetings so far for the Special Committee on Strategic Oversight. Nick and I just want to give a few updates as to like what we've been up to, what we've accomplished so far, and where we see the committee going for the rest of this term.
Yeah, thanks, Peyton. So we all talked to you in really grand visions about what it was that we wanted to do and what we wanted to achieve with this committee. And a lot of what Peyton and I have done over break have set really specific goals for what we want the committee to achieve between now and the end of our term. And that's essentially to answer 3 questions. The whole idea of the committee was to test Peyton and I's documentation structure and see whether or not that's effective for modeling the kind of changes that SGA wants to make. So we want to know 3 things. Is it easy for anyone to write a report from scratch and document things the way we want them to be documented? Is it easy for anyone who doesn't know anything about the issue to take that documentation and then understand the issue? And is it easy for anyone to take what's stated in the documentation and apply that towards their institutional reform efforts? So essentially, the way that we've divided this committee is into answering those questions. The first 2 is what my group is dealing with, which is taking brand new issues like how we treat student workers or maybe ADA compliance on campus and exploring new ways to draft documentation. And Peyton can tell you about the part that's answering question 3.
Yeah, so then the second part of this whole shebang is figuring out whether or not we can take that actual report and do something with it. So if anyone remembers, at the very beginning of this thing, I presented my draft of an initial report on sexual assault prevention. At our last meeting, we talked to Sexual Assault Prevention Director Sarah Haggard and found out that several things on our checklist agenda of things that need to be done have already been accomplished by the university, so those can get crossed off. Some of them are just not possible, so they need to be removed from the list, and some of them we have been able to find very specific action steps to get us where those things are going. So basically, from a short-term perspective, we see this going really, really well, just in terms of the sexual assault prevention report. What we're going to be doing now, the way we have the committee set up, you're going to be seeing a piece of legislation from me next week so that we can take some items off of that action list. We basically set up the committee so that it would be able to interact with Senate a little bit more than what was initially everyone's worry, is that this was not going to be a legislative committee. We want to make sure that Senate is up to date and knows what's going on with the committee. So be on the lookout for a piece of legislation next week, and we'll kind of explain how that whole process works when it comes up. Yeah, I think that's all we have if anyone has any questions.
Are there any questions for Chair Lynn and Speaker Pro Tem Saya? Director Brown.
Did you consult Director Haggard before making the list?
Yeah, so the initial list that we came up with was a compilation of different action items that Sarah had initially wanted to make sure happened, and then also ones that Maggie had put in the piece of legislation that got passed at the very beginning of this school year. So they were all things that came from the minds of people who were involved in the process.
Are there any further questions for our presenters tonight? Seeing none, thank you all very much for your report.
Awesome.
Are there any further committee chairs who would like to give a report tonight? Seeing none, I'll seek any directors who would like to make a report. Chief of Staff Billman.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to see all of you here in Wildcat Chamber again. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Maggie Billman, and I serve as our Chief of Staff over in the executive branch. So we're kind of nobodies to you all. Just kidding. We're the branch. Cool. So I'm going to make this I'm going to make this quick. Some COVID updates from Cameron. He's really been doing well at attending the COVID exec meetings and keeping us up to date. So here are a few things that we can share with you all. Yesterday was the first day in about a month that cases went down for the state of Kansas as far as Omicron goes. So that is a little glimmer of hope. The state of Kansas is about 1 week behind the national average. So if you're tracking, statistics or whatever, that's just a good piece of knowledge to know. So faculty members were given the opportunity to move their courses into an online modality. Reports show that only about 70 courses have moved online, which is less than 10%. So I think that's an exciting piece of information. I think it's also something to say for our administration structure that they gave faculty that freedom. I know that peer institutions have not had the same grace extended to them. So I'm thankful for the administration that we have. Cameron continues to advocate for hybrid modality to the provost, encouraging them to utilize technology that has been implemented already. Moving on from COVID, let's talk a little bit about the student body president tuition waiver. So for those of you who don't know, the leadership in SGA is scholarshiped at a certain percent. The student body president is scholarshiped at 100%, no matter if they have in-state or out-of-state tuition. This can be a real budgeting nightmare for our SGA budget. So we are trying to work with the Kansas Board of Regents in order to get an out-of-state tuition waiver so let's say I'm from Nebraska. I run for student body president. I win. SGA is kind of screwed because I have to fork over my whole grand tuition now because I'm an out-of-state student. What this waiver would do would basically classify me as an in-state student, just forget that those hypothetical dollars ever existed, and then SGA would go forward paying 100% of my normal tuition. So that's what we're working with the Board of Regents on. I hope that that was understandable. President Linton is coming into office February 14th. Love that. We have a meeting scheduled with him. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. We have a meeting scheduled with him for February 28th. That'll be an hour-and-a-half meeting. So we're trying to compile a good-sized list of things that we want to take to him to really introduce what SGA is and how the students want to interact with him. So that will be us, as well as, tentatively, the folks who are the recipients of the new offices after elections. So woohoo! What else? Big 12 on the Hill is typically a Big 12 conference-wide event. It was moved virtually to virtual modality. We didn't really care for that, so we said we're going to plan our own trip to DC. So February 28th through March 3rd, we will be in DC meeting with our representatives and talking about things that matter to us. We'll have a white sheet, so if you have anything that you want added to that, come let us know. Kansas Higher Ed Day will be March 9th, so kind of the same gig, but just state legislator. The big thing, the Kansas Higher Ed Day will be with all of the KBOR institutions. So yeah, shout out to Logan Cohn, our legislative director, my king.
Yes, sir.
Another thing that I want to share with you all that has been really cool this week, I walked into the office Monday afternoon and Michael said, "Do you want to come to ILC with me?" And I said, sure. ILC, for those of you who don't know, is the Intercultural Leadership Council. And it's just a group of multicultural student leaders who meet with Student Body President Dowd and talk a lot about issues that impact them, and then they meet with administrators. We had LaBarbara Wigfald, or LB, come in from the College of APD, Architecture, Planning, and Design, and she presented with us a project that a group of students had started working on in the late 2000s. This project highlights the Martin Luther King Jr. bust that's located at the southeast corner of Ahern, and it produces a garden around it to highlight the bust and to protect it and to make it a more sought-after location on campus for us to reflect. For those of you that don't know, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his last university speech here at Kansas State University before he was assassinated. The notes from the speech that he gave were actually in his coat pocket when he was murdered. And so K-State has a really rich connection to Dr. King, and it's something that we don't celebrate. So LB presented on this to us, and then told us about these gardens that they want to build, and they would be called the Coretta Scott King Gardens of Engagement. There's like 3 circles, highlights the bust, edifies it, yada yada. Really beautiful project, and it's centered on reflection, education, and action. Yes. Cool. So I raised my little hand and I said I would love to help out with this. So I'm putting together a committee of folks who have 3 goals. The goals being to communicate with facilities. The project was approved for $1 million in 2008 by facilities. And once the MSC started to be in the rumblings, they said, ooh, we don't have the time or the money for that. So we're getting it back up and going. To meet with facilities and discuss budgets, discuss timelines, discuss plausibility. Another goal of this committee will be to educate the student body on the rich history that Dr. Martin Luther King has here at Kansas State, as well as engaging in other Black History Month events in the month of February, which is coming up very quickly. And 3, to fundraise for this this project, because due to inflation and budgets, I foresee money being an issue in this. That's the big thing that I have. I happily stand for questions if anybody has anything else. Also, if you want to help out with that committee, let me know.
Chair Long.
Is this in any way connected to the campus beautification projects or no?
Yeah, great question. So, not to my knowledge. The campus beautification project, off the top of my head, I think is only about a $600,000 project, and a lot of that is focused on small improvements such as like power washing building signs, painting rails, painting lampposts, things like that. Adding gardening, like small things.
Caucus Leader Kidd.
Yeah. So going back to your comments about the tuition piece with the SGA leadership, have there been discussions about if a student is from a state where K-State offers a Midwestern Student Exchange Program, have there been discussions about if a student's already coming in and has been elected in which they already have a renewable scholarship, have those discussions taken place? And with that, what has been the precedent set from the past leadership that we have come through?
Sure, I can answer the precedent part, and then I'm going to defer to Michael for the other part. The precedent part, President Jansen Penny, who was the president in 2019-2020, was from Colorado, and K-State paid, or sorry, not K-State, SGA paid his whole out-of-state tuition. So that's the precedent for that. As far as the Midwestern Exchange scholarships, I'm not sure. Michael, do you know any information on that?
So I'm not sure. The problem with that is that it would have to line up very nicely, and you would kind of be taking a gamble every single year as to if someone has that or not. But I think that's something that we really need to mention. And when it comes to other scholarships, they don't count well. So it's all cumulative past that. So
yep.
Yeah, it's a total lump sum package basically.
Any other questions?
Are there any further questions out there?
Coolio. Thanks, everybody.
Alrighty. Are there any further directors who would like to give a report tonight? Director Heimerman.
Right. So last semester, around right before break, I mentioned being a part of a committee called the JED Campus Initiative Committee. And a part of that committee, I'm on a subcommittee that looks at policies on campus. And a policy that K-State lacks is a planned leave policy that most universities have. And what these policies entail is, say a student runs into a medical emergency, they have a mental health crisis, family emergency, or they just don't know what they're doing. They don't know if they want the major they chose, and they need to take some time off to think about it. There's nothing really in place to say what happens to those students once they decide to make that decision. So what this policy would ensure would be that they'd meet with their advisor, say, hey, I really need to take this year off, or an advisor would reach out to them hey, you're not doing too well in your classes, you're an at-risk student. And they would negotiate where that student would let their advisor know, hey, I'm going through this. The advisor can write down, this is the situation. The student can then say, I plan on returning back at this time, and the advisor says, great, and they record that on record, and that will be something on their cases report. And then say down the lines, it gets close to when the student would be expected to return, K-State will then reach out to the student and say, hey, we know you're going through this. We want to extend our hand out to you and see, do you want to come back and continue your education with us? So this also ensures that we have a system to retain the students that we have already, as well as it gives the students a navigated path as to what will happen if they take time away from their traditional education here. Other things that this could include would be protecting scholarships that K-State does give to the students to ensure that once they take a break, they don't lose the money that they had in place. So a part of that is there's a rough draft of the policy currently, but I am the only student on this committee, so they really want more student eyes. So this next Tuesday, February 1st, they're planning on doing some sort of focus workshop where students, and they chose SGA as students, to look over the policy and kind of give feedback as to what could be changed about it, what's good about it, what is awful about it. And so yeah, so I have a sign-up sheet right here. And all I need is, like, if you're interested in this, I just need your name, email address, and then we haven't picked an exact time yet because we want to see what everyone's availability is. Right now, it looks like there's a good time as to when people can meet. I already passed this around cabinet, so there's some big names on this already. So just a great little hangout for us. So I'll start it down here. Just pass it around. If you're interested at all, I would just encourage you to sign up for it. It will be a good policy to look at. And the goal right now, so it'll just be one meeting, so it's not like a huge time commitment. And the faculty member in charge of this is Dr. Jeannie Leonard Brown, and she will be sending out emails probably tomorrow or during this weekend as to specific times and dates for it. Well, the date is February 1st, but specific times for that day. Any questions over it?
Are there any questions for Director Heimerman? Caucus Leader Kidd.
Yeah. So have we? I know that this group is in its infancy. So have there been any examinations of like over like what other universities do regarding this interaction with students?
As far as I know, from what I've heard from Dr. Leonard, is that when she's talked to other universities about it, they are shocked that we don't have a policy. That's the main thing that she told me.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for Director Heimerman? Seeing none, thank you so much, Colin.
Thank you. You should keep passing around.
All right, are there any further directors who would like to give a report? Elections Commissioner Cruzen.
Hey friends, hope everyone is doing well. As of January 18th, we are now in election season. So I'm sure you've seen Instagram posts from campaigns and all that stuff. So I want to give a quick update as to how all things elections are running. So thank you, Ari, for pulling up the K-State Sga Elections webpage. This is the one-stop shop for all of your information that you need for elections, all the links you need to fill out, and all of the dates and times and all that stuff. If you have not filed yet through Cases, go ahead and make sure you fill out that link on the elections website. That'll take you where you need to go, so your name appears up on the ballot for the election. And then I'm sure you're all aware, but if you're not aware, if you do plan on running for any office, you need to attend a mandatory meeting so I can update you on the rules and regulations as it relates to elections. All of those meeting times are there. They're Wednesdays at 7:30 on Zoom, and then Friday at 5 in the Union in the CSI conference room. If those times do not work for you and you have a hard conflict on both of those days of the week, send me an email and we can work out something. But for the most part, it seems like those two times and locations/virtual meetings seem to work out. But please go ahead, send me an email if you know already that those do not work. And then I think that's all on this page. Ari, if you could go to the Election Forms and Regulations tab on the left-hand side. The Election Forms and Regulations, that one. Awesome. So here's all the links. The ones I want to highlight for you is the social media registration link. Per the new election regulations, you need to register your social media account before you go public. That way I know the account handle and I can add it to my list so I can know who's all out on the internet and needs to be monitored. If you have an Instagram account, for example, you'll go ahead and click on that link and then just basically give me your account handle. And then that way the KSU SGA Elections Committee, we have our own account. We will follow your Instagram account, give you one follower, yay, and then we will make sure that you are all posting in accordance with the election regulations. And another thing to highlight is the violations link. That is the complaint form linked there, and also the violations tab on the left-hand side. you'll need to click on it. But right there is where you can click if you see a violation. Maybe you're walking around on campus and you see someone's chalked too close to the residence halls. Go ahead and click that link, and you can fill out the form there. I'm sure you might all be aware. If not, you need to fill out that link, fill out that form within 24 hours of discovering said violation. And I think that is all. Before I end my speech, I did have some numbers to give you all. We have 2 students who have filed for a college council position. We have 4 people that have filed to be student body president, 3 people who have filed for student body vice president, one student who has filed for student publications, 21 students who have filed to run for some Senate office, and then 3 for Union Governing Board. So if you have not yet filed for your respective office, make sure you go ahead and do that so we can expect you on the ballot.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Elections Commissioner Cruson? Senator Glasscock.
I forget, is there a way to see who's going to be on the ballot before the election comes up?
Yes. So as soon as we get closer to when the actual election will be held, which is February 22nd and 23rd, whenever filing closes, which is on the 11th of February, we'll have our finalized list of everybody to expect on the ballot, and then we'll give you a proof to send out for your respective ballot, basically. So on the 11th, we'll have our final list, be able to create the ballot and how it'll look, and then send that out to you all.
Thanks.
Director Brown.
You mentioned that you'll be monitoring the social medias. Will you be doing that yourself, or do you have a task force?
I do have a task force, the Elections Committee. We all split responsibilities of monitoring that, so it's a shared Instagram account, basically, to help me out and to share the load, basically.
Are there any further questions? Oh, Vice President Koger.
I have a double whammy. Yeah, IRV, is it up and running?
So we actually had a meeting with IT on Monday. They showed us what they have going on, and it looks pretty good. And it looks like it'll be, in time. Everything will be good for the election.
Double whammy part 2. This is just. Do they only have to provide their Instagram usernames if they have a campaign account, or their personal?
That's a good question. So it's whatever you are using to campaign for yourself. If that is your personal one, go ahead and register your personal account before you make your one post about, hey, go vote for me. If you do have a campaign account and you are using your personal account to promote your campaign account, you don't need to register your personal one. An important distinction also is private account versus public account. If your Instagram account is private and not public per se, then you don't have to register that. But if you were you have your private Instagram account and then you make it public for the use of campaigning for yourself, then yes, you need to register that. Does that make sense, or was that confusing?
Yes. Thank you.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions out there? President Dowd.
Reed, could you elaborate or walk us through the difference from this year compared to previous years when it comes to filing a violation, and how those violations move from you to the committee?
That is a great question. So one of the biggest changes, and if you all were here before the break, we tweaked how violations kind of work, thanks to Senator Gus, who worked on that, and how violations are reported. The basic rundown is that legislation gives the Elections Board the ability to determine whether or not a violation is legitimate. So, for example, Ari, could you pull up and go to the Violations tab? Thank you. So here are some example violations that are on the website. You can kind of see how a violation, once it is made, will be put on the website. And you can also go down to the determination. Both of these violations were dismissed because, for example, the election regulations were not published and were not on the website. Therefore, it wasn't very fair to hold these campaigns accountable for not being able to see the unpublished regulations. So that's kind of an example of how that process works for violations that are legitimate. We have a workflow established within New Org Central that allows us to go ahead and kind of, there's 4 steps basically. So once a violation is approved by the board saying that it is legitimate, the submitter of the form will get an email saying that it's in the next step of the violation, and then we will, schedule a hearing and all that, and then it'll go to the next step, and then once there's a verdict on that violation, we'll go to the final step, which is putting it on the website. So that's kind of a way we've kind of modernized the violation system to increase transparency and make it a bit more communication between the elections board and the violator and the submitter of the form.
Senator Booz.
This is more of a point of information, but yeah, on that links page, had the newest versions of everything. So the elections regulations are completely published now.
Yes. Awesome. Yes, awesome. Thank you all very much for that. Are there any further questions for Elections Commissioner Cruson? Seeing none, thank you for your report, Reed.
Thank you.
All right, are there any further directors who would like to give a report tonight? Seeing none, I've got a quick one. All right, I'm getting up and moving around. I don't know about you all. Woo! Cool, nice. Thanks, Nick. So really quick, couple of things for you. Number one, staying on the topic of elections, if you all, when you're in your various SGA meetings, see anyone with like a sticker or a button that's like supporting a campaign, please don't file a violation right away. Try to show some grace and just ask them to cover it up with a sticky note. If it becomes a problem, then you can use that button, but please just try to show some grace and just ultimately have people cover it up. Those are not allowed in any student senate meeting, committee meeting, whatever it may be. So please just try to keep that in mind and show everyone a little bit of grace this campaign season. Next, on a little bit different elections note, I talked a little bit about this before we left for break, but within Student Senate, we also have some really cool positions such as chair of committees, speaker of the Student Senate, speaker pro tem, parliamentarian, whatever the case may be. It is going to be election season for these positions as well before we even know it. So if you are interested in these positions in the future, being a committee chair, anything like that, please try to talk to the person that's currently in that position. Meeting with them is a really great way to learn more about the position, see if it's something that you're really interested in, get some really good tips on running and so forth. I had a really great experience with that last year, and I would love for everyone else to have that as well. So if you're interested in speaker, please come see me. If you're interested in pro tem, come see Nick. And any other position out there as well, please go and talk to them because they're super cool and we want to have a great group next year. So anyway, that's what I got for you all, unless you have any questions for me. Sick, let's get to voting, folks. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move into approval of the allocations for the night. We have Bill 54 that was referred favorably from the Travel Allocations Committee, 9-0. And that again was a $2,100 request from IISE. They were recommended $1,000. Is there a motion to approve the allocations? Chair Long.
I move for the allocations.
Second.
Senator Bellamy.
I have a correction first.
Okay.
I believe industrial is spelled industrial.
What line is that?
So in the title, it's insedrial, actually.
It does.
Thank you for that, Senator Bellamy. I will get that changed. So with that correction, it has been moved. Is there a second to approve the allocations?
Second.
All right, sorry if there was one before. It has been moved and seconded to approve the allocations. Are there any objections? Seeing none, our allocation will stand approved. With that, we will move into final action for the night. And first up, we have Bill 50. Will the author please come forward?
Okay.
Were there any changes made to Bill 50? Anyone from Ops?
No, we did. I don't believe we made any changes.
Gotcha. Awesome. You have first right to debate.
Yeah. Just as like a beginning note, I'm very obviously like not Annalee Hobbs or Ashley Elliott or any of the people listed on this. They had a judicial hearing tonight, so Annalee sends her regards. She would be here if she could. But in the meantime, you got me. Anyways, so I of questions in ops, and so there were a couple of things that the judicial members wanted me to point out on like the logistical side. When we're taking a look at the speaking rights bills here, there is still a very clear separation of powers between like judicial members and their ability to speak in Senate. There are enough members of student tribunal that if any one of them wanted to come speak in Senate and that like topic happened to come up in student tribunal, that member would not be put on the case. So there was that. And then judicial members are also trained really extensively in like confidentiality bias and like judicial policies and stuff. And they fully understand the seriousness of their positions. And there's no reason to believe that they're going to like throw all of that out the window when it comes to just being able to like speak in student senate. Now for maybe more my part of this debate, I've always been a really big advocate for allowing more access to speaking in this body, and that it simply is not going to change now. Judicial is the only branch of our student government that does not have speaking rights on their own. When we take a look at like executive branch directors, phase 2 interns, they all have speaking rights and judicial members don't. The threshold to become a member of the judicial branch is so much higher than the threshold to becoming a phase 2 intern. Like, that is simply fact. Any random person from the university could just like be a phase 2 intern after going to a few meetings and they can speak in Senate. And the judicial members are chosen for those positions. Like, they have to cross a very high threshold to be able to have those positions. There's no reason that we should be like denying them the ability to speak in front of this body. And then, okay, so there are members of our judicial branch that want to speak in the body, and there's no reason that we should be disallowing them to do so. From my standpoint, like, I don't know who we are to determine that they are any less member of this organization than any of us are. Like, the thresholds that they've had to cross to get to the positions that they are in the judicial branch is just as high as any threshold that any person in this room has had to cross. And every single other person here has the ability to come up and speak and debate, and there's no reason why any of them should not be allowed to. If we are not even able to uphold accessibility and equity for the members of our own organization, there's no reason we should like be able to expect that we can uphold accessibility and equity for the members of our entire campus. There's absolutely no reason that any member of Judicial is any less member of the Student Governing Association than any one of you here tonight. That's all I've got.
Thank you for your debate. Chair Lynn, is there any debate in the negative on Bill 50?
I have a question.
Okay.
Can you clarify what the difference is between having speaking rights and not having speaking rights?
Yeah, so having speaking privileges in Student Senate means that you are able to be recognized to speak, whether that is by a question, for debate, anything like that. Any student at this university can speak in first or second open period. That is just open time in front of this body. You don't need speaking rights in order to do that. However, in order to have, or if you have speaking rights, you are able to debate and to ask questions. A member of the body can defer their speaking rights to you at any point in time. So say you just have like a student were to walk in right now and they wanted to ask a question, Senator Booz, I'll use you as an example, you could defer your speaking rights to that person and they would be able to ask that question. So that is the main difference there. All right, with that, I will now be seeking debate in the negative. Chair Harmon.
Hi, everybody. This is not an impassioned plea for you to vote no against this bill. I just wanted to express my opinions and clear up what I disagree with as the ramifications of this bill. I don't see this bill as solving an equity issue between the legislative and executive branches and judicial. I just wanted to express the opinion and maybe see if you all agreed that the issue here, we did not make the speaking rights rules to specifically exclude the judicial branch. The reason they don't have speaking rights is because they are the branch that does not deal with policy making. That's point one. Point two is that speaking rights in Senate does not make you an SGA member. Senate is not SGA. Senate is a very distinct meeting. So that is point number two. Point number three is that there are lots of mechanisms for which if a judicial member wanted to speak in Senate, they absolutely could. Speaker just mentioned the ability for them to have speaking rights deferred to them. Above and beyond that, we have open period for anybody and everybody, both at the beginning and the end of our meetings, to be able to speak and address to Senate. The only reason I'm up here is to just kind of clarify my opinions on that. It's not that I'm against judicial members having speaking rights in Senate per se. It's just that I frankly don't see the reason for it. The whole philosophy of the branch is we all have different jobs that we all work on, and I think everyone has their separate roles, and it dilutes the sense to me of what speaking rights are, what they represent, and what the actual why of their existence is. If judicial members have them, to me, that kind of conflates a lot of different philosophies about how we structure our organization. So I just wanted to clarify and maybe put to rest a lot of consciences that I don't think voting no against this bill is a vote to exclude the judicial branch in any way, shape, or form.
Awesome. Thank you for your debate, Chair Harmon. Is there any debate in the positive? Chair Richenberg.
Yeah, so I just quickly wanted to give insight on something that I struggled with when I first was an intern here. I did have speaking rights, but the idea of walking into a student senate and seeing a bunch of students sitting in front of you who are all dressed very nice is very intimidating, especially being part of a branch where you don't necessarily get to interact with all these people. You might not be necessarily as friends and as cliquey as some of us are. So to say that, oh, well, you can just ask for speaking rights, it's not that easy for a lot of people to go up to someone they don't know and be like, hey, can you give me speaking rights? And so I think not allowing students and maybe putting them in a comfortable position just for something small doesn't seem very worth it. I know that wasn't a passionate debate, but just something to think about when we're just, saying simple stuff like, oh, just ask for speaking rights. It's not that easy for a lot of people, and I think that's something that we need to think about as well.
Thank you for your debate, Chair Richenberg. Is there any additional debate in the negative? Senator Scharnhorst.
Okay, everybody, a couple things on this bill. I think the way that it is currently planning on implementing the idea of being more inclusive to judicial branch members is flawed. There are definitely some problems with this. And one of those problems is debate. So just as some background, our student government is built in imitation of the United States federal government. We've got our three branches, we've got our separation of powers, and our similar principles. One of the things that this bill does with regards to debate, specifically on legislation like I'm doing right now, is it allows judicial members to debate on legislation, and this directly violates separation of powers because the role of the judicial branch is to interpret the legislation we pass and the student code of conduct and that sort of thing. If they ever decide to come up and debate, that is essentially contributing to the making of legislation. So it goes from being interpreting law to being making law, and that is specifically within Senate's and the legislative branch's sphere. Now, you might say, well, executive members can currently get up and debate, and I too see that as a problem. So I think not only is this flawed, I think the existing parts of our governing documents are flawed because they do harm separation of powers. So in the real federal government, the executive branch does influence what the legislative branch does. In fact, every president has a legislative agenda that members of the executive branch attempt to get accomplished. And I think this makes a kind of sense because as the executive branch, the people charged with executing on the law that is passed, they know best, better than the lawmakers, how some particular way something is phrased or the implementation of a certain idea might be problematic for them to execute on. So that is why I think there's an argument for why executives should be able to debate on stuff that the legislative branch does. But judicial, I mean, with the real federal government, they're very, very careful about whether judges can influence lawmaking at all. And I think not only should we not pass this, we should consider changing our current law so that nobody except Senate can make law. That's everything.
Thank you for your debate, Senator Scharnhorst. I will now seek any debate in the positive. Chair Solomon.
I have a question of clarification.
Okay.
Does the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General have speaking rights?
Yes, so the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General do have speaking rights in the status quo right now. Any member of the Senate Executive Committee automatically has speaking rights. Chair Lynn.
I have positive debate if no one else did.
Granted.
Okay. Okay, so this bill to me, honestly, is a matter of principle. Historically, it's undeniable that we have treated the judicial branch as basically the black sheep of SGA. Like, all of the executive members and all of the Senate members are together all of the time. And the judicial members are the ones who, like I have personally heard, just simply don't feel accepted by most of the people in this room. And that's nothing necessarily against any particular person. It's kind of just the way it is. If there are members of the judicial branch that want to feel more accepted by our organization and participating in Senate is going to make them feel more accepted, I don't see any reason to disallow them from doing that. The idea of not giving them speaking rights just because you don't see the reason that they want to speak is not a good enough reason for me to say that they shouldn't be allowed to. I don't see any actual negative ramifications of giving the members of the judicial branch like the rights to speak when they want to. I absolutely disagree that this violates any separation of powers. Annalee made it very clear to me, and I tried to express this in the first speech, that there are plenty of members of the judicial branch so that if somebody wanted to speak on any particular topic, they wouldn't be put on a case that has anything to do with that particular topic. So there's no issue as far as confidentiality and things like that go because they would be separated on those issues. And then the idea that our government is modeled after the US government is simply just an asinine argument to me. However long ago SGA was created, a bunch of kids got together and decided that they wanted to model K-State student government after the US government. Those 20-year-olds had no better reasoning for doing any particular thing and deciding those particular rules than this group of 20-year-olds has right now. If we've decided that we want to change the rules, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be able to. The members of SGA 20 years ago were not any smarter than any of the people in this room right now, and 20 years from now, we are not smarter than any of the members that are going to be changing all of these policies then.
Thank you for your debate, Chair Lynn. Is there any additional debate in the negative? Senator Booz.
Hello, everyone. I've mentioned before that if I was building this system from scratch, I would do something that's different than both this bill and the status quo. I would make executive and judicial basically have the same speaking rights. I would have them able to speak during open periods, give directors reports, and possibly debate and ask questions on top bills in their areas of expertise, not on everything. And I would still allow anyone to be able to speak by having someone else defer their speaking rights. And so I'm not necessarily in favor, I'm not necessarily negative on this, I'm not necessarily for this, but I do want to respond to a couple of the points that have been made in the negative that I very much disagree with, and echo some that I do agree with. And the first point that I want to respond to is a previous speaker's assertion that Student Senate is not SGA. And yeah, we do a lot of things here. We have a lot of confluence of people in this room, and I think that's great. But I think that's a key point we need to keep in mind as the student senators that are debating on this, is that there's a whole lot that goes on in SGA that is cabinet related, that is judicial related, that we don't see. And just because we don't see it does not mean it's not SGA. Defining SGA by these are the people who can speak in student senate is not a good way of doing it. Instead, it's just the people who are involved in SGA is SGA. And you can talk outside of Senate as well and discuss all of that and give director's reports as well if you're a member of the judicial branch. The second bit I wanted to respond to is another previous speaker's assertion of equity as the reason for doing this. In my opinion, equity is the definition almost of giving people not what is equal, but giving people what they need. And yet, this is being used in service of an argument which is in favor of making everyone equal and not considering their individual situations. Instead, I really think we need to get away from sort of the buzzword about like what is, you know, equity or equal or whatever, and consider what that would end up doing for this body by allowing more people to speak. And that may be good. Like, seriously, I think there's a possibility that, you know, we pass this and it turns out great. But I think we need to make sure that we're doing this with a level head. Finally, there was also another point that we're built, like the people 20 years ago didn't really have a better idea what they're doing. But I mean, that's the thing, right? Is like we're designing rules for people 20 years in the future, or 40 or 10. Even if they can change it, they may not. It's easy to have a status quo bias, to keep doing what you're already doing. And if we're designing rules for people 20 years in the future, then we can't necessarily rely on advanced training or the right people being in office. We're designing rules for people who may be malicious or may not be, and probably won't be, to be clear. But a lot of the rules that we develop are trying to prevent those edge cases of people who end up trying to misuse the rules as well. And then finally, I would have really loved to have had a judicial member or two come and talk to us at any point before this. And so if you have a judicial member or have contacts with them, I would be more than willing to defer my next debate to anyone who wants to speak. I am not sure if this is the best idea, and I'd be love to work with anyone who would love to do something a little different. And yes, a little bit more restrictive, but something that I think is better overall. I rest my case.
Thank you for your debate, Senator Booz. Are there any speakers in the positive? Go ahead.
I just have a question. So, like, what rights does the judicial branch have in Senate as of right now?
Yeah, so currently, except for the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General, they don't have speaking privileges. So any judicial member is welcome to come and address Student Senate during first open period still. But in terms of like debating on legislation and asking questions, they do not have speaking privileges to do that. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I will now seek debate in the positive for this bill. Intern DePaz.
So I believe that.
Oh, hold on one second. Chair Lynn, you had.
Can I just make a point of clarification for a previous speaker? Is that okay?
Is it debate-like?
No, I just wanted to like reiterate that the judicial members are in a case right now, which is why none of them are there.
Okay.
Just so everyone knows.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, kind of bouncing off of some of the previous statements that we came across. So, I believe that we should hear the judicial branches because they have showed, like, my apologies. This is nervous. This is my first time here. Basically, they went through a tough process. I mean, it's not hard to be. My apologies. It is very hard to be a judicial member. So they have shown leadership qualities and just the qualities needed to be in that position. So I believe that they, express the. My apologies. I'm still just nerve-wracking, but they show the qualities that they can make decisions for students, because SGA is about the students. This is about the student life. It's for them. We make decisions for them. And if we have more student input that are in leadership positions, I believe that it can benefit us in the good. And yes, I do believe that Senate is to pass legislation and to make decisions for the students. But if we have other students' opinions and their say, because sometimes we might try to pass some legislation, and Judicial might have some more insight on that topic, we can use their opinion just to kind of come to a consensus and be like, okay, this changes your point of view, but in the good way for the students, because we're not doing this for us, it's for the students. That's the reason why we do this, is for them, not for us, but for them. That's all I have to say.
Awesome. Thank you for your debate and turn to pass, and congrats on debating for the first time. All right, I will now seek debate in the negative on Bill 50. Is there any additional debate in the positive on Bill 50? Chair Solomon.
All right, this is gonna be fairly quick. I have 3 points that I want to make in response to previous speakers. First is on the whole equity versus equality argument. My belief is the same as the previous speaker, whereas equity is what people need, equality is the same for everyone. In my opinion, the reason we are doing this is for equity because everyone needs to be able to speak within Student Senate. It is a requirement and a necessity for individuals who have a voice in SGA in general. They should be able to voice their opinions in here where things happen. The second argument I would like to make is I asked a clarification question whether the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General had speaking rights within Student Senate. They do. And so in the past, there have already been individuals, arguably the two most powerful individuals in the judicial branch, making arguments and making points on things that they probably talk about in judicial branch as well. So if we're okay with the two most powerful members in that branch being able to speak on issues, and that's not an issue of separation of powers, then what is a separation of powers issue? That's the biggest thing I think we're talking about. And then finally, in the past, the third point I want to make is we have examples of individuals coming up and speaking about these different things. And so if people who are currently in power, who are Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General, have spoken on things, and we have not had issue with this in the past couple of years, then why are we having an issue with it now? I think both on the pathos side of this argument with the rhetorical appeal, this improves life for all individuals in Student Senate and SGA General, and all students overall, and also it makes sense based on the previous actions we have taken and the things we have allowed. Thank you.
Thank you for your debate, Chair Solomon. Senator Booz, do you have debate in the negative?
No, I have a question.
Okay.
When do the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General vote on cases?
When do they vote on cases?
If any.
As in their judicial cases that they're doing? Yeah, they're on Thursday nights.
I'm not quite sure about that. Do they end up voting?
I am not 100% sure, to be honest. I don't know if
I'll look at the governing documents then.
Okay. Gotcha. With that, I will be seeking debate in the negative on Bill 50. Senator Scharnhorst.
Okay, I just want to clarify a couple of things that were relevant to my argument and have been mentioned by previous speakers in the positive. So, first is, why have we not had a problem of separation of powers with the status quo? My answer to that is we have, but the fact that this bill is on the floor presents a unique opportunity to notice that problem when, just going about our daily business, we might not have noticed that before. In addition, I wanted to comment a little bit on this whole idea that future and past senates and senators do not know better or worse than we do. Actually, that's precisely the purpose of having living governing documents. We preserve the institutional knowledge of the people of the past, and being in the present, we have a better perspective than they did on the actions that they took. And that's why we have the ability to change what they did. We can say, well, this line doesn't work for us. Well, we can change that. That doesn't mean that we know better. It just means we have a different perspective. And that's actually inherently the purpose of living documents like our governing documents and like the US Constitution and body of common law. As far as equity versus equality, ultimately I think it comes down to if the existing situation is flawed, I don't think we should pass legislation that makes the problem worse with regards to separation of powers. I think we should stop here, and the people who have the desire to see more access by judicial branch, we can work together to solve the problem of separation of powers, and I don't think that adding something on top of the heap is the right choice. As far as why we don't see judicial branch come to Senate and speak already, I mean, obviously, yes, they have the barrier of needing to ask for speaking rights, but we don't see Annalee come and talk more often than in like director's reports or open period, because they meet at the same time that we do. That is one important thing to think about, is that is probably the most cogent barrier, not just speaking rights, but the fact that they have meetings the same time we do. That's partially why they are the quote unquote black sheep. I think, Annalee's office is open. I go and drop in there. I don't think there's anything to be said about the cliquishness of executive and legislative branches. We just have mutually exclusive meetings, which means it's difficult to make as close friends. That's everything.
Thank you for your debate, Senator Scharnhorst. I'll now be seeking debate in the positive on Bill 50. Chair Richenberg.
So mine's going to be really quick. I just wanted to share some information regarding the judicial branch. A previous speaker has said that, yeah, they do have meetings during this time, but they don't meet every week. They only meet when they have cases, and a lot of the times, correct me if I'm wrong, Blake, but they don't all meet. Like, it's one of the groups, right?
I believe most of the meetings, I'm pretty sure they all happen at some point tonight.
All right, so they all happen tonight, but going back to my point, they don't always meet. They only meet when they have cases, and so just because they're at the exact same time does not mean that they just can't always come to meetings. So another thing to keep in mind is they don't always have meetings this time. It just depends on the cases, so just keep that in mind.
No, thank you for your debate, Chair Richenberg. Senator DeMott.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I know, since I'm on ops, I know Annalee and Matthew came and talked about this bill, and they had stated that this was not originally their idea. And I'm just wondering, so the people that originally had this idea with the judicial, are they not allowed to come talk about this bill since they don't have speaking rights in general for like Senate, or how does that work?
So, and I actually met with Ashley Elliott, was the one who came and talked to me about this first. So I believe it was her idea. She currently does not have speaking rights in Student Senate. My name is actually on this so that it can be on the floor, because there has to be a member of the legislative branch on the piece of legislation so that it can be considered by Student Senate. So that is where that stands. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Gotcha. So yeah, Ashley would currently not have speaking rights.
But could she come talk in our committee since she was an author on the
Yes, committees are completely open to any student whatsoever. All right. With that, I will be seeking debate in the negative. Oh, question, Caucus Leader Pineda-Gomez?
Yeah, so hypothetically speaking, if Ashley was here, could any of us yield our speaking rights right now to her?
Correct. That can be any student senator can yield speaking rights to anyone. Chief of Staff Billman.
So since everyone with speaking rights gets the opportunity to debate twice on an issue, if I were to yield my speaking rights to someone with that comes as one of my turns, correct?
Correct. It is essentially you debating, just someone else doing the act, but it would count for you, if that makes sense. All right. With that, Caucus Leader Pineda-Gomez.
In the negative.
Debate in the negative? Granted.
Okay, everybody, I'll try to keep my 2 cents pretty short here. So as previous speakers have mentioned, we are making decisions for senates of the future, right? So that presents us with a great opportunity to see what the status quo has right now and what we can improve upon. Now, I don't think passing this bill could improve on our current situation. And I think Gus and Max have really hit the big points really well here. But something that I do want to mention, and it's actually what I just asked about, is I think we're all really nice people in this room. If anybody from the judicial branch was here and they wanted to come up and debate, I don't think any of us would deny them that privilege. So there really isn't a barrier there. If anybody wants to come say something, they are more than willing to walk up to any of us, and we're here for a reason. We're student leaders, and we're also want everyone to have a voice, so we would obviously give them that. Additionally, I think Gus really hit really well on this. This bill actually highlights the current issues in place because we currently don't have very good separation of powers. And again, going back to my previous point of making decisions for the future, if we pass this bill, we might not see huge effects right away. We might have 1 or 2 people from Judicial come and speak, which would be awesome, but they already have the opportunity to do that. However, down the road, we could see issues with, the separation of powers not being really separated at all. And that's that. The last thing I kind of want to leave you guys with is, I was actually just thinking about this in the back row, is what does it mean to be a senator, right? So, essentially, we're here debating on legislation. We want to pass legislation, and we all get the right to debate, which is amazing. It's really good. And other than other than that right of being able to vote, if we give up speaking rights to a different branch, then it essentially just takes away from what we all can achieve as a body. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you for your debate. Thank you for your debate, Caucus Leader Pineda-Gomez. Really quick before I call on you, Michael. Zoom people, I'm really sorry. I'm just now seeing your hands up, and this is my bad for not mentioning this before. On Zoom, please type in the chat whatever you are trying to indicate. For example, if you have debate in the negative, please type out debate in the negative. It's just a lot easier to keep track of rather than seeing people's hands. Or like if you have a question, motion, whatever the case may be, please do that in the chat. But I see both of you up there. President Dowd, really quick. Did you have debate on either side or?
Yes, in the negative / positive. I don't really know.
Gotcha. Really quick, Senator Prester moved to call the previous question in the chat before your hand was up. That was during the last speech, sorry. So with that, the motion for the previous question has been called. That does require a second.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to call the previous question. This will close debate and needs a 2/3 majority in order to pass. So we will do this by a hand vote. Zoom, raise your hands for this part. But all those in favor of closing debate, please raise your hand. Proxies, you have 2 hands. Oh boy. Okay, thank you very much. All those opposed, same sign. All right, that's close. I think the yays have it there. To close debate? 2/3.
That was no way.
That wasn't 2/3? All right, cool.
Mr. Speaker, I call for division.
Senator Booth.
I call for division.
Yeah, we'll call for a division. So, yays, please raise your hand. We count the hands.
Oh, okay.
Yay.
Everyone got their hand up?
There's 10 on Zoom.
10 on Zoom. Please keep your hands raised. 1, 2. Thank you very much. Please lower your hands. I have 22 there. And then all those opposed to closing debate, same sign.
Hey Blake, can you vote when you're not in the chamber?
I'm right here. Yeah.
That's good.
And you're yeah. It's all right. You have to.
Okay, yeah. The nays have that. The debate will not be closed, and we will continue on with the debate. Okay, so at this point in time, I am seeking debate in the positive. Intern Hoffman, did you have positive, Michael? Or were you negative?
It's really neutral.
You gotta pick.
Yeah, do it not quite negative.
Okay, President Dowd, you have the first debate.
What fun. We had a previous question. Yeah, so super short here. Really just an explanation. I feel as though I'm more positive because if this bill comes across my desk, like I'm going to sign it. I personally don't feel vehemently for or against this debate. I think either way we will be fine. So please choose however your little heart desires and duke it all out in here. And, you know, I really do think that to give more context, the judicial branch is this giant question mark that I really didn't understand until I started working closely with Annalee and started realizing that there are a lot of non-disclosure agreements that just are written in the way that they operate. And so they're very different than my role, where I see it as my job to make sure that I'm providing information on certain cases to this body. And on top of that, I think that that is an essential part of this job and something that I have tasked myself with making a point to always have some type of information to share with this group or on the listserv or in different meetings that we're going to. Annalee and their side of the branch really can't do that. They really can't do that effectively every time, because it's like, oh, hey, here is a very specific case about a specific student that some of us might know who might have gotten an MIP or who might have done something delinquent on campus and is now facing some type of charges from the university, and they have to make the decision on what they do with that case. So, you know, I think that there's a very big difference there. I'm not going to rehash old points, but what I will say to anyone who is seeking SGA leadership positions, I have been very intentional, and I had to learn this really from the beginning, because once I take a side on something, people associate that with, there's a weight that comes with that as well. And so, like you've noticed now and in a couple of other decisions, I try not to talk until the very end, because I want people to have their own freedom of thought before I put my opinion out on there. So please use that as a reminder to make space for people and make space for those discussions to be heard, especially if you take a leadership role. Okay, that's all I got.
Thank you for your debate, President Dowd. I will now be seeking debate in the negative on this bill. Senator Willis.
So hey guys, first thing I'd like to say is this is awesome. Like this is great. I'm loving this. I love this debate. For me though, in the negative, personally, I think that one, this is rehashing stuff. Obviously, that we've, this is an answer that's already out there. Everybody who wants to come here, they can go and they can do whatever they want. They can come here and we can give them speaking rights if we feel like it. But for me, the thing is that people in this room, we were elected. All of us were. And that's kind of part of the separation of powers. It's an application. We give entrust power to Annalee and others. We put them in charge. And as much as I am okay with them speaking and talking and giving their opinions, we at the end of the day are the ones who put this legislation in front. We are the face of the student body. And as SGA is entirely, but we are the legitimate face. We are the ones that go on that ballot. And so for me, kind of the biggest thing is that it takes Blake even to get this here. It takes another member just to be able to talk about it. And as much as I do like Judicial, having them and being able to influence the legislation that it takes for even just people in this room to present to us, to ourselves, is a separation of powers thing that I'm very concerned about. But on the flip side, I really like the idea of getting Judicial involved. I think that there's a lot more that we could do as a body to get them more involved and to get them here and to make a more inclusive space for those other branches. But do I think that this is the answer? No. So thank you.
Thank you for your debate, Senator Willis. I will now seek debate in the positive. Intern Hoffman.
Brought this up here just for fun, I guess. Also, I look like I normally do, so I apologize for that. And I just have 2 quick points that I just wanted to say, I guess. Denying people the right to speak on the fact that they haven't spoken in the past is not fair to say when they don't have the voice to speak in the first place. Hold on just a quick second. They may not have spoken because they didn't want to, but rather because of like various different things, because of nervousness of asking other people to defer to them, or like other previous speakers have mentioned already. Which is why we need to allow them the right to speak so that they have the option to if they want. And then secondly, sure, they weren't elected for Senate, but they were still elected by the student body, which I mean has to count for something. And giving them the right to speak and importantly debate in a thing like this, it's not allowing them any power to actually vote on it, which I think is an important distinction to make. And I mean, because what are they going to do? Filibuster the room so we just keep speaking forever? No, I mean, I'm not worried about that. I want to hear people's voices. I want to hear more people speak, which I think is something that's really important in SGA, because we just need more people to speak their minds. Thank you.
Thank you for your debate, Intern Hoffman. With that, I will now be seeking debate in the negative. Senator Scharnhorst, you have already used your 2 debates.
Question.
Oh, thank you.
So with the exception of the 2 topmost executive branch members, is anyone that is not in the legislative branch elected by the student body?
Gotcha. That is a no. Only the president and vice president are elected by the student body. All right. Senator Claricall?
I have a question. So, like, what rights does the executive branch have in Senate that the judicial branch does not have? Because we keep on bringing that up. I
Yes.
just need some clarification.
So directors are, first of all, student body president, student body vice president, and chief of staff they have speaking rights in Senate, so they can debate on anything. They can ask any questions, anything like that. I believe cabinet members have speaking rights as well.
That is correct.
They do. Yes. So members of cabinet also have speaking rights for that. Those are all the executive branch positions, so they have speaking rights and judicial does not. Outside of Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General. President Dowd.
Question of, well, I don't know, is it a question for others? I can't really tell. Can members with speaking rights make motions, second motions, and do everything related to motions except voting?
Correct. Senator Riffle.
This is just a question. Where is it defined that the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General do have speaking rights?
So it is in the statutes, and it is members of the Senate Executive Committee is where that falls under, and they are members of the Senate Executive Committee. Let me see. I had this Control F a few minutes ago.
That's 0206.
Yeah, section 020206 A is where that is found. Are there any further questions out there before we resume debate? All right. Seeing none, I'm seeking debate in the negative on Bill 50. I will now seek additional debate in the positive on Bill 50. Is there any additional debate at all on Bill 50? Intern Pilchard, are you positive or negative?
I'm kind of neutral. I feel like this is
You gotta pick.
I feel like this is just a closing point because I feel like everybody's just recycling and reiterating points that have been talked over. It's just kind of better off that we just find a settlement now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. If you'd like to debate, you're welcome to debate, but you have to pick a side if you want to.
I have a question.
Hold on. Intern Pilchard, are you positive or negative? You have to pick one.
I'll just take the positive stance,
Got it. Senator Booth.
Yeah, so are ex officio members of a committee members of that committee, or are they, are they just ex officio?
Yes, so ex officio just means non-voting.
Point of order.
Chair Harmon.
Ex officio means appointed by position. Ex officio non-voting. They can be voting. There are some ex officio voting members.
Thank you for that. But yes, they are members of the committee.
They're members but not voting. Okay, yeah.
All right. Intern Pilchard, you have you have the floor.
Yes, so I think you all know my opinion on this issue. I made that pretty apparent. But I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Jacob and Alex for speaking up tonight. This is their first time on the podium, and this is my second, although this is my first time in debate. So just a quick round of applause for these people and just good work on them. But yeah, just kind of going over points that have been addressed tonight. Really just the big thing is with separation of powers and the concept behind it, we have to preserve the system, but I also understand that it's important that we kind of make an issue out of the idea of these people not really having any form of adequate representation in Senate. And I think rather than kind of settling on necessarily the way that it is presented in this piece of legislation, we should try and make towards additional methods as to where they can be kind of introduced in a more inclusive light and kind of seek to their insight as to how we can kind of present and create our new legislation moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you for your debate, Intern Pilchard. With that, I will seek debate in the negative on Bill 50. I will seek additional positive debate on Bill 50. Chair Salmon.
Okay, I think the debate can be summarized into 3 specific points that we have just been talking about over and over again. First is the equity versus equality debate and whether inclusion is important on this issue. I think there are 2 main points that are very, very important that should sway your vote to be yes. First, equality in this case means equity because everyone should have the right to speak because, as we talked about before, AG and Deputy AG do, and if individuals are passionate about this, and if this was brought to the floor by individuals from the judicial branch, there is a need for this to be in place. Secondly, not once when we have tried to increase inclusion within and throughout organization for the benefit of not only us, but also other students on campus, has it gone wrong. And so in this case, I think you should take that into account because this is something that improves individuals' lives, not only within our own organization, but also individuals across campus. And that's what we're here for, as previous speakers mentioned. The second topic that we have been debating about is separation of powers, which is obviously very important as we are a government and we should be very careful about how we govern ourselves. First, the current precedent, as I mentioned, means that AG and Deputy AG can already speak. If that is not a conflict in separation of powers, I do not know what is. This is not increasing those powers by any mean, it is just giving that power to other individuals under Deputy AG and AG. Second, Student Senate should not be the federal government. We've been debating about being the federal government, how there's separation of powers and it's very rigid. We should emulate the federal government to the point that it benefits ourselves and it benefits students. In this case, I'm making the argument that by emulating the federal government and allowing individuals in the judicial branch to speak in Student Senate, that benefits us and that benefits K-State. And finally, we've been debating about qualification to speak in Student Senate, whether it be the executive branch, individuals in Senate, or judicial individuals. First, all branches undergo rigorous processes in their own respects, whether it be us getting elected in Senate, whether it be chosen in the judicial or executive branch, to obtain admission into SGA. We should not discount that in any form, and that should not be a reason you vote no on this bill. Second, cabinet members have speaking rights currently, as we established a couple minutes ago. And if cabinet members, which are chosen in a very similar way as individuals within the judicial branch, have speaking rights, why should judicial members not have speaking rights? On all three of these points, it is shown that passing this legislation will be the benefit of not only ourselves, but also the individuals we are serving. I genuinely hope you vote yes on this because it will improve our university. Thank you.
Thank you for your debate, Chair Solomon. Is there any debate in the negative? Chair Harmon.
As with my previous debate, I really only find myself up here to, from my perspective, in my opinion, to correct what I think are misconceptions based on the 3 points of the last previous speaker. First one being equity equals equality in this case because AG and Deputy AG have speaking rights in Senate. They have speaking rights because they are on Senate Executive Committee. They do not have speaking rights because they are judicial branch or because those positions in particular ought to have speaking rights in Senate. It's purely ex officio, and members of the body in the past thought that because all of Senate Executive have lots to do with leadership and the planning for the entire body, that is why they should have speaking rights. This argument applies directly to me. For those of you who didn't know, I'm not a senator. By some of my own logic, I can agree with the argument that this is not having to do with my particular committee. I'm not an elected representative. Why do I get to debate on this piece of legislation? And I think the main reason for that is because of my seat on Senate Executive Committee. I find myself in very much the same position in defensibility as AG and Deputy AG. Second point is we are increasing representation. I disagree with that. We are a representative body of the student body, not of SGA. If we were just a representative body for SGA, then sure. But by opening up, it's not voting rights, but by speaking rights and debate and influence on the legislative process, that doesn't increase representation for the student body. The Senate is already set up to do that. Separation of powers, I addressed that with Senate exec leadership, and that's why AG and Deputy AG are in Senate. Totally agree with the fact that all branches undergo rigorous processes to attain admission. However, those processes are set up differently for good reasons. They're not being admitted for the job of making policy and passing legislation. So there are differences there, and that's okay. That's good. That's why we have them. And then last but not least, the fact that cabinet has speaking rights. I thought about this, and it's because of their role in making legislation. In our system, cabinet and the executive branch are clearly not just the executors of the policies and legislation that we draft here in Senate. They are oftentimes the first ones on the front lines of making these policy decisions. Cabinet members often get initiatives started, which then come through the legislative body. So it's kind of for that reverse reasoning that cabinet members often have those speaking rights because they should be able to debate on the causes that they are initiating and executing through the executive branch. So those were just my rebuttals clearing up what I saw as misconceptions and misarguments in this debate.
Thank you for your debate, Chair Harmon. Is there any additional debate in the positive on this bill?
Point of order, the previous question was called and seconded in the chat.
Thank you very much. The previous question has been moved and seconded. With that, we will move into another hand vote. All those in favor of closing debate, proxies you get to, please raise your hand. Okay. Most of Zoom. Go ahead and lower your hands. Nays, same sign. All right, I believe the yeas do have it that time. So with that, debate will be closed, and we will move immediately into a vote on Bill 50. Nick, take it away.
Alrighty, thanks so much, Blake. Since we're all getting back and we have some new senators with us, I just wanted to explain the voting process. You have 4 options: yes, no, abstain, or pass, which means I will come back to you at the end of the list, or I will forget and you will yell at me. Alrighty, Bain.
Hold on really quick, Vice President Koger.
Oh.
What majority is needed?
We need, because this is a constitutional amendment, we're going to need 42 votes.
God bless.
Chair Long.
We have 45 people present and 6 people approved as proxies, so 51.
Senator Scharnhorst.
I move to bulk roll call the two bills.
I object.
So the motion was made to bulk roll call. There was no second, but it was objected to. So there's a second. So it has now been objected. We will now move into a hand vote on that. If you would like this to be bulk roll called, please raise your hand at this time. Proxies, you have 2. Granted.
Yeah, so.
Gotcha. Okay.
Can I have a point of order?
Is it debate like?
No, Mr. Speaker, what happens if the Constitution passes but the other one doesn't?
Wait, the opposite?
Like, if one passes and one doesn't? Okay. That.
Yeah, so I think you're referencing these 2 bills that we're trying to bulk roll call are related. Technically, if we do bulk roll call it, we're voting on 2 things at the same time. So we could have, if this, say, were to pass by a 2/3 majority, the statutes amendment would pass and the constitutional amendment would fail. So there would be kind of that awkward situation where the bills are about the same thing and one passes and one doesn't. If this were to be bulk roll called, essentially. Senator Booz.
Yeah, and like additional clarification on that. Yeah, I mean, the Constitution does not require any particular arrangement of speaking rights. Therefore, if the statutes amendment passes, that would, I believe, control.
Gotcha. Okay. So those are points of clarification. With that, please raise your hand if you are in favor of bulk roll calling these 2 bills. All right. No, same sign. Folks, we got a lot more people in here than have been voting.
I just wanted to make sure you got the 13 that were on Zoom.
13 on Zoom. Thank you. All right. I believe Zoom makes it really hard to make a judgment call.
There were 3 no's. Yeah.
3 no's on Zoom. Okay. We're going to do that one more time. So, yays, raise your hand at this time. Proxies, you have 2.
What are we voting on, Blake?
So, yes, sorry. This is whether or not to bulk roll call bills 50 and 51. So if you are in favor of bulk roll calling bills 50 and 51, please raise your hand at this time.
15 on Zoom.
Gotcha. Thank you very much for that. And nays, same sign. Okay, the yays do have it. We will bulk roll call these 2 bills. So with that, the floor will now be opened up for debate on Bill 51. Peyton, would you like to debate on Bill 51 or would you just like to yield?
I'll have Anna Lee debate.
Gotcha.
I have rights, I don't need to.
Good evening, everybody. I apologize. I was priorly in a hearing, which is doing my job. So, I hear that you guys have just had a bucket of fun while in here. I am riveted. I'm excited. So, I believe that I gave Peyton an outline of several of the points I was coming in to make. I have nothing more in my life than I hate than redundancy. I trust Peyton enough to hope that she has clarified all of my points. Is there a way that I can be moved into a period of question, or how does this work? I apologize.
Yeah, so we don't have a questioning period for debate.
Excellent.
So the floor is
Wow.
yours.
So basically, besides providing an equitable field just for the judicial branch, which I feel like is a given, I would like to formally point out that interns have speaking rights. While there are several roles in the judicial branch that are leaders, such as the SRB chair, the parking appeals chair, and the chancellor of tribunal, who may have the precedent to come in and speak to Senate that do not have the ability and or the speaking rights to do so. At a minimum, I think that should in some form be recalled. If there is an issue with saying that there are too many individuals coming up into Senate and having the opportunity to speak, then why isn't there legislation going through that is putting more caps on that? If there's no initiative to do that, then I don't understand why we can't have equitable rights. If we're just going to sit here and be like, okay, we're going to, we should kind of reduce maybe back on the executive branch's ability to speak, just because in the future, then we need to make action on that if we want to make it equitable to the judicial branch. There are judicial members that are interested in getting involved and attending and speaking in Senate. I do not have a problem coming up here and making myself known, introducing myself to other people. Not everybody in my branch is. Do you realize how intimidating it is to come up to somebody, introduce yourself and be like, hey, you don't know me. Can you give me the opportunity to come up here, speak on behalf of your name, and give an opinion to Senate? Like, I don't mean to be like this, but there is a very valid reason to say no. And having speaking rights would eliminate that barrier of entry and allow there to be more interbranch cooperation in that sense. When it comes to the issues pertaining to separation of powers, I train my boards very well. I know that is a standard that will be continued by Kathleen, the incoming Attorney General. I know that future Attorney Generals will have more rigorous training procedures put in place based simply on our advisors' upcoming plans and future hopes for the branch. I know that we are doubled in quorum for tribunal, which is the only board that would have anything to do if an interpretation or an appeal needs to come through a judicial board, and that's in relation to Senate. So no SRB member or student review board member would ever touch those things. So that automatically is 8 members who will not be interpreting any student governing association documents, appeals, interpretations that would not have the opportunity to speak. And any tribunal member who does decide to speak on a document that will be put through our boards, we have quorum and we will be able to not let them be on that case. There is a very high threshold to being a judicial member. We're all rigorously trained on matters of bias, confidentiality. I know I've come in here before and stated this to you, but they are, above all else, knowledgeable that judicial policies do not allow non-neutral parties to make a ruling. That is our #1 rule. It is set in stone. I have dismissed several people off of cases before in the past because they have not been a neutral party. So I don't know how long I have to speak about this.
The time limit is technically 4 minutes.
Oh, how quaint. In all honesty, I know you guys have been sitting here talking about this for a while. I'm not coming in to yell. I think that's unnecessary. I'm not coming in here to stomp my feet and be mad. I'm just trying to make this place more equitable. I'm trying to let our branch be seen because we haven't been. I'm coming forward to you asking for us to have a seat at the table because we haven't had that in the past. And I know that if these bills don't pass, okay, Kathleen already has them drafted and ready for next year. It's not something that's gonna go away. We're gonna keep trying, and if you keep saying no, that's all right too. We just wanna make sure our voice is heard. And if that doesn't mean that if a judicial member doesn't attend every Senate, that's okay. Just the fact that they know that they are allowed and welcome in that space is what's important to me. I am concluded with my debate. Thank you
Awesome.
so much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much, Attorney General Hobbs. Really quick, before I get to the crowd, Senator Prester, I see your motion in the chat to call previous question. That motion is not in order. So it's for each individual bill, we have to have 5 opportunities for debate on each side. That was the very first debate on Bill 51. So that will not be in order for a while. With that, I see a couple hands up. Senator DeMott, is that,
Question.
yes, go ahead.
So when it comes to tribunal, I know that Annalise said, you may not have the answer to this, but like
since they are the ones that would be interpreting this, and since they have double quorum, at least right now, so say in the future, like somebody comes and debates on a bill and then for some reason it goes to tribunal, who is responsible for keeping track if members from tribunal comes and then, is that just like something that they would have to be like, oh, hey, I went and debated on this bill? I mean, you just never know the malicious intent people may have in the future and not say that they came and debated on a bill. I don't know. Could I answer that? I love that.
I would love for you to answer
Oh,
that.
how wonderful. Thank you for asking a question. It makes me feel important. So regarding that, we sign a contract when we enter into the judicial branch that states, hey, I have opinions, that's great. In fact, that's rather sexy. But knowing that, that means that whenever you have to possibly go into a hearing, if you've said anything controversial on Twitter to other people, that means that like you're out. And not to be like, you guys talk a lot, it's not hard to know if someone's spoken in Senate. And I have full abrupt trust in this system to know that whoever is in a speaker seat could easily lean over to the Attorney General and say like, hey, a judicial member came and debated about this. Do you know that? Is that okay? Did you give him approval? Did you already meet quorum in the tribunal meeting that I messed up for that? But that being said, everyone has malicious intent. We're human. We have our own selfish desires, but I'd hope that the bias training eliminates that. And when they come in here, they're not representing the judicial branch. They're representing a sworn-in member of SGA. So, thank you.
Alrighty. With that, Senator Kramer.
I just had a question. In the last bill, it said that if this was like about giving judicial branches the right to be recognized on the floor, and this one it's speaking privileges. Is there a difference between those two?
So, and this is kind of what Senator Booz was saying. The governing document that outlines our speaking privileges is the statutes. And so in Bill 51, that, like the very first change that's made in Section A, will all sworn-in members of KSU-SGA for the term shall have speaking privileges. That essentially does it. Like everyone, regardless of if they're judicial, executive, whatever the case may be, if they've been sworn in, they will have speaking privileges if that passes. Bill 51 specifically just outlines that judicial members will have speaking privileges essentially, and that they can speak on the floor, but they will not be able to vote. So that's where that classification is made.
I have to return back to the hearing I'm currently seated in as the complainant. So I will say au revoir to you. If you have any questions for me, please text me and I'm more than happy to answer. I would also like to use this time to remind everyone that the mask policy is still in place. Please wear them correctly. I know it stinks, but I would really not like it to go on your permanent record that you can't wear a piece of cloth properly. So I apologize. Thank you. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you, Attorney General Hobbs. All right, with that, we are going to resume debate. I see a point of order from Senator Blood in Zoom.
Yes, thank you, Speaker Phillips. I was just looking at Bill 51, and that is not the bill that was approved and referred with no recommendation from the Senate Operations Committee on Tuesday afternoon. Specifically, the part that says all sworn-in members of KSU-SGA. We had explicitly changed that 2 meetings ago in the Senate Operations Committee to remove the possibility of any and all students at Kansas State University from gaining speaking privileges through this bill.
Okay, thank you for that. Chair Porter, do you happen to have the other version of that legislation then?
If you want to give me just 1 second, I'm fairly certain that the copies that I had during our ops meeting on Tuesday were the ones that I downloaded off of the referred legislation folder on Org Central. So at this point, I'm not sure if I have a copy of the bill that had edits made to it 2 meetings ago because I was not present for that meeting. So if you want to give me just 2 seconds, I will look and see if I can find it, or if any of my other ops members happen to have the edited version of that bill.
Okay, Andrew says that he has it. Well, I'm going to go ahead and entertain right now. If we want to go ahead and if someone wants to move for a 5-minute recess, give everyone just a little break while we get this sorted out, everyone can go use the bathroom. I think that could be in the best interest of everyone. Senator Scharnhorst.
I move to take a 5-minute break.
It has been moved and seconded to recess for 5 minutes unless there are any objections. We will resume at 9:20. All right, everyone, we'll be resuming here in just a minute. Please go ahead and find your seats.
Oh yeah, just like that together. I see what you mean. That'll be something. Yeah.
On when
Everyone, please find your seats. We're going to resume.
One day I'll buy you. Sorry, Dane, I would invite you. Pretty sure if you're from now, eat and donut.
All right, everyone, we will go ahead and resume from our recess. Here's how we're going to handle this really quick. I am first going to just go over the changes that should be on your agenda, what you will be voting on today. I will then give a quick period for any clarifying questions about these changes, just since there's been a lot of confusion. At that point, we will then move into negative debate on Bill 51. This will be the first opportunity for negative debate. Are there any questions about that before we start? Awesome. So, Bill 50 is on the screen right now. The yellow part is what is different from your agenda. So, this section 604 will now read, any member of the judicial branch shall have the right to be recognized on the floor of student senate and debate, but not vote. That is the correct text for Bill 50. Ariana, if you'll go to Bill 51. Bill 51 will read, instead of all members of KSU SGA, it is all independent positions, SGA interns, and all members of the KSU SGA legislative, executive, and judicial branches shall have speaking rights. That is the correct text that you will be voting on today for Bill 51. Are there any clarifying questions about either of these pieces of legislation? Senator Booz.
There is one more thing that's wrong in that. In our most recent meeting, we changed the rights to privileges on line 28.
Rights to privileges on line 28.
Because to align with line 30.
Got it. Okay, that is now the correct version that you'll be voting on tonight. Any further questions or corrections on that? Awesome. Thank you all for your patience with that. We will now move into negative debate on Bill 51. Senator Booz.
Well, I didn't expect someone to threaten to keep bringing up their piece of legislation until it passed, and that's just what happened. That is something I thought we would never see in Student Senate. I know it's a possibility, like for some of the constitutional amendments, like I know you might pass it next year, and that's fine, but I think I just reacted extremely negatively personally to the act of someone saying, we will do this until it passes, no matter what you think. So I wanted to start with that. The second bit, I also don't want to be redundant. You know what my thoughts are overall. But I wanted to bring up two things on this bill that make some more sense. First, I think we need to stop, I need to mention how people keep bringing up the intern program. And the intern program used to be the Student Senate intern program. It used to be explicitly for Student Senate, and in a move to improve the equality and the equity of the branches, we made it more open and more all of SGA focused. But we kept the speaking rights, because why wouldn't we in that case? And, interns aren't members of a branch. They are technically independent at the moment. And so, the fact that interns have speaking rights is an artifact of history, and that is one we could change. If you would prefer, after we debate this bill, that we write a bill that does include remove interim program speaking rights, as well as making the other executive changes that the previous speaker mentioned. We definitely can do that. And in fact, like the executive changes, we might write a bill for regardless. And I mean, if these two don't pass, I can guarantee you we write a bill on this before the term ends. And so like that question of like, why weren't we thinking about executive branch? Well, yeah, because we weren't thinking about speaking rights at all. But this gives us an opportunity to examine what our speaking rights policy should be and why. And I think that bit is important, and that's what we are determining today and in the next couple of weeks. The other bit is that interns don't have separation of powers concerns like judicial and executive branches, and I think that's the key difference in that sense. And they're also learning how to do not just student senate things, but other branch things as well. And so I think that learning piece is also important and is also a reason for them to have speaking rights when other people may not. The other thing is that I could see a reason for voting no on the constitutional amendment and yes on this, because this is easier to change. And it means that we could, if you think it's a good idea, try out having everyone have speaking rights. And in 2 years from now, then we could say, hey, this experiment has been good, or this experiment has been bad. And then we could pass it in the Constitution and give it the greater protection that it would get by being in the Constitution. But that isn't a reason to vote yes on both. In fact, like that could be a reason to vote yes only on this. But overall, like as I said, like really, I'm conflicted overall. But I'm probably going to end up voting no, and I would encourage you to really think about it.
Thank you for your debate, Senator Booz. Positive debate, Chair Lynn.
I would firstly like to point out that if what you've gotten out of all of the positive debate tonight is that we would like to take away speaking rights of the interns and the cabinet members, that you are absolutely wrong. Like, if that's what you're getting out of everything that has been said tonight, I don't know that you've really been listening to what's happening. What I'm up here advocating for is that all of the members of SGA are treated with the same amount of respect in this room as any one of us, and currently they are not. For everybody who has come up here and said that we can just yield our speaking rights to them. First of all, anyone who has said that and anyone who plans on voting no on these bills tonight, I am fully expecting that anytime somebody comes in that you are the ones that are going to be yielding your speaking rights to them. And secondly, if you don't have a problem with yielding your speaking rights to let them get up here and talk, there's no reason you should have a problem with them just being able to talk on their own. There's nothing else I can say to convince anyone in this room that we should be trying to make this a more equitable space for every single member of our branch. None of you are any more important than any other member of the judicial branch or any member of the cabinet is. So I strongly urge a vote yes on both of these bills tonight.
Thank you for your debate, Chair Lynn. I will now seek debate in the negative on Bill 51. Is there any additional debate in the Senator Scharnhorst.
Okay. A previous speaker asserted that there was a fundamental misunderstanding on behalf of the negative debaters for both bills about the intent of the bills. I think that perspective actually is a fundamental misunderstanding of the points of the negative speakers, because I don't have any problem with trying to make things equitable. In fact, I'm all for it. I just think that this execution presents some serious problems, and that's all it is. I think voting no is just recognizing that there's a better way to do this. And as far as us yielding our debate time to people who want to debate, I'm all for that. I think a lot of the people who've gone up here and spoken in the negative would gladly, if called upon, yield their debate time. I think that's it.
Thank you for your debate, Senator Scharnhorst. I will now seek additional debate in the positive on Bill 51. Is there any additional debate in the negative on Bill 51? And is there any debate at all on Bill 51? Seeing none, we will now move into a roll call vote on Bills 50 and 51.
Okay, thank you so much, Blake. For bulk roll calling, for anyone who is not familiar, you can give two different votes on both pieces of legislation, 50 and 51, at the same time. Yes to both, no to both, yes to 50, no to 51, etc. I'm going to ask that everyone on Zoom say it out loud so that I can record it, because it's harder with the notifications to get both of your votes at the same time. Alrighty. Bain. Bannister.
No to both.
Barron.
Yes to both.
Bellamy.
Yes to both.
Binkley. Blood.
No to 50, pass to 51.
Booze.
What?
Booze.
Oh, no to vote.
Kahlo. Chapas. Compton.
No to 50, yes to 51.
Cranford.
Yes to vote.
Croslow.
No to both.
DeMott.
No to both.
Doc. Dunlap.
Yes to both.
Encero. Esslinger. Fields. Buss.
No to both.
Gann.
No to both.
Glasscock.
Yes to both.
Heatherman.
Yes to both by proxy.
Holland.
No to both by proxy.
Hotzel.
No to 50, yes to 51.
Jambunathan.
Yes to both.
Colorikion.
Yes to both.
Kidd.
Yes to both.
Koch.
No to both.
Kramer.
Yes to both.
Lister. Long.
Yes to both.
Lynn.
Yes to both.
Marquez. Mayor.
No to both.
McPhee. Nelson.
No to both.
Pineda Gomez.
Pass.
Porter.
Yes to both.
Prester.
No to both.
Richenberg.
Yes to both.
Riffle.
No to both.
Rook.
No to both.
Roth.
No to both.
Salmon.
Yes to both.
Scharnhorst.
No to both.
Shear.
No to both.
Schindler.
Yes to both.
Spleakle.
No to both.
Stout.
No to both.
Sitzma.
No to both.
Thomas.
Yes to both.
Volgamore.
No to both by proxy.
Wallace. Warren.
No to both.
Willis. Jackson.
No to both.
And Willis Reese. Okay.
And Sarah, Fields, and Lister are all no to both as well over Zoom.
Okay. Fields, Encero, and Lister. We have two passes. Senator Blood on specifically Bill 51.
No.
Okay. And Senator Pineda Gomez on both.
No to both.
Okay.
All right, we're going to take a quick second to tabulate that.
Okay. On a vote of 17 to 29 to 0, Bill 50 fails. And on a vote of 19 to 27 to 0, Bill 51 fails.
Okay, with that, we will now move into introduction of allocations for the night. So our allocation this week is Bill 55, the fiscal year 2022 travel allocation to the Student Finance Association. They are headed to their conference on April 2nd through April 5th in Stillwater, Oklahoma. They requested $3,000 and were recommended $1,000. Are there any questions or corrections for the allocation? Senator Booth.
It's more of a, yeah, this is a question. Like, what additional things can we do to make sure that people know that they can only get $1,000?
It's on their form.
Right.
Like when they're filling out the form, it says $1,000. We'll have people fill out the forms incorrectly, no matter how clear we make it. And we also tell them when they come in to present to us, we make sure that they know right away that we can only recommend up to $1,000. We only put that they requested that amount because that was what was on their original application.
Right, so I mean, they knew when they came in.
They knew when they applied and they knew when they came in to give their presentation. Yeah.
Okay.
All
It's supposed
right.
to be on the legislation like that. It's how their application was.
I mean, like that's the number that they put in when they applied for the first time.
Awesome, thank you both. Are there any further questions or corrections on Bill 55? Seeing none, I need a motion to consider the allocation. Caucus Leader Thomas.
I move to consider the allocation.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider the allocation. Thank you very much for that. With that, we will move into introduction of legislation. Is there a motion on Bill 56? All right, Caucus Leader Thomas.
I move to consider Bill 56. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Bill 56. Okay. Bill 21-2256, amendments to the KSU SGA bylaws regarding independent positions by Blake Phillips. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association should continue to review its governing documents. Whereas in current practice, the holders of independent positions are not allowed to hold another position in one of the three branches. Whereas this practice is advertised along with the application for independent positions each year. Whereas many officers in KSU SGA have their student senate seat declared vacant if they are sworn into an office. Whereas adding this practice to independent positions will help to decrease confusion when members are selected for these positions. Whereas appointing a new independent position officer within 48 hours does not make sense due to the weekly frequency of student senate meetings, and whereas 2 weeks is an ample time frame to select a new officer for KSU SGA. Be it enacted that Section 1, Article 7, Section 1 of the KSU SGA bylaws shall be amended to read as follows. So the change that happens here is instead of hold an office, it's hold a position in one of the three branches, and then the text is added. In the event a student senator is appointed to an independent position, the newly appointed officer's student senate seat shall be declared vacant. And then in B, it says that this process shall be completed by the final meeting of the spring semester and shall be approved by student senate. And then there is also a change in E that says 2 weeks notice instead of 48 hours notice. In Section 2, this legislation shall take effect upon passage of the student senate and signature of the student body president.
Thanks so much, Blake. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Booz.
Yeah, is that 2 weeks or 48 hours? Are you interpreting that as the amount of time to nominate someone or the amount of time for them to be approved?
Yeah, so it says to appoint someone. Either way, honestly, I think that more time is necessary than 48 hours because 48 hours is just pretty short. And if we want to hold like interviews for the position or something like that, that gives us a little bit more time to do that. instead of just 2 days.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions? Fantastic. We will now move on to Bill 212257, amendments to the KSU-SGA statutes regarding the Student-Centered Tuition Enhancements Committee. Is there a motion to consider Bill 57? Chair Solomon.
I move to consider Bill 57.
Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect. Will the author please come forward?
Alrighty, Bill 57, amendments to the KSU-SGA statutes regarding SCTE. Authors Blake Phillips, sponsors Tram Fam. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association shall continue to review its funding practices. Whereas the Student-Centered Tuition Enhancements Committee was created in 2004 by the K-State administration as a way to create visible and positive change to the university. Whereas this money feeds directly from student tuition dollars. Whereas due to changes to the Student Senate term length, it is necessary for the SCTE committee to make its recommendation to Student Senate earlier in order to allow passage in the same term that the committee met. Whereas priority funding allows for proposals to receive funding for more than 4 years. Whereas some proposals have received funding for over 10 years. Whereas 4 years of funding is enough time for a program to be started, prove effectiveness, and find other sources of funding. Whereas proposals receiving priority funding are no longer new programs and initiatives. Whereas in order to allow more opportunity for startup programs and initiatives, priority funding should be eliminated. Whereas applications have already been submitted to the SCTE committee for consideration in fiscal year 2023, and whereas these changes will be made beginning with fiscal year 2024 applications so the entities have proper time to adjust to these new changes. Be enacted that Section 1, Chapter 27 of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association statute shall be amended to read as follows. And I'm going to summarize this part here. So basically, you can see in 270102B, the change that's made is that the SCTE committee has to submit their recommendation to Senate by the 4th meeting of the spring semester, again, so that they have, or so that they can have these changes pass in their same term. And then on 270103, this changes the focus of SCTE specifically to request seed money for the creation and implementation of new programs and initiatives, and then cuts out all of priority funding. Priority funding is when an SCTE applicant has received funding for 4 years. They are essentially then promised funding, and that funding decreases by 5 to 10% each year until they run out of funding. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Alrighty, thanks so much, Blake. Are there any questions or corrections for the speaker? Leader Kidd.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, for the entities that have been left on SCTE funding for multiple years, trying not to ask a question I already know the answer to, but why, what have those entities said as like the reason why they've stayed on like with SCTE funding instead of fully moving over to get funding elsewhere?
Yeah, so I honestly haven't asked these entities why. Yeah, I guess I don't have a great answer to that.
Alrighty, any further questions?
Follow-up, yes. So what research do we have over the funding models that we have given towards these SCTE entities since its inception?
So in terms of when this, the research that I've done, priority funding actually began in 2009. This was right after the Great Recession hit, and honestly, it was a way for programs to have a source of funding in such a hard economic time. That was when this was implemented. So at least the way that I interpret that, it was just kind of like a saving thing for new programs so that in a time where there was no development and it was just recovery, that they were able to still have funding. So the way that I see it is these programs have had funding for 10, 11 years, some of them. These are no longer new programs and initiatives, which is the purpose of SCTE funding, and we should be using our funding more for those new programs rather than funding old programs that are no longer new, if that makes sense.
Follow-up?
Yes, please.
Sorry, so I understand that, but I guess, I don't mean to throw this on debate, like, sorry, so when SCTE applicants fill out their applications for funding, how clear does the entity have to make to
the committee of seeking out other sources of funding within a given time frame.
Yeah, so that is a requirement on the funding or on the application is like, what other sources of funding are you seeking? Do you have any current other sources of funding? So that information is available on a per application basis. It's up to the committee if they want to put that entity on priority funding still. They vote to do that. And then Student Senate also has to approve it with that list that is now struck in this version.
Okay, Senator Booz.
Yeah, in the past couple of years, if we had fully funded all new proposals, what amount of funding would that have taken and does SCTE currently, like, would that be more than SCTE's current funding? Would that be less? Any information we can get on that?
So I definitely don't think it would be more. I don't have the exact number on that. Again, my rationale behind this was just, in my opinion, after 4 years, it isn't a new program anymore. And the purpose of this money is for new programs, so that is what we should be funding instead of funding something that was on SCTE 10 years ago, regardless of how much money it takes up of our application.
Alrighty, any further questions? Fantastic. In that case, we'll move on to Bill 212258, the federal year 23 to 24 decrease of the student health student services fee. Is there a motion to consider? Senator Booz.
Yeah, I move to consider Bill 58.
Second? Second. Perfect. Will the author please come forward? All right. Bill 212258, fiscal year 23-24, decrease of student health student services fee, authored by myself and sponsored by the Student Services Fee Committee. Whereas the Student Services Fee Committee reviewed the request of Student Health following a one-year contract allotted after their fiscal year 21 regular review. Whereas Student Health funds Lafayette Health Center, which provides a well-rounded outpatient healthcare system to the student body. Whereas Lafayette Health Center provides a variety of services to students ranging from free visits with providers to discounted services such as physical therapy, allergy injections, etc. Whereas the Student Services Fee Committee extensively reviewed the utilization, market price comparisons, financial situation, and budget reduction scenarios of Lafayette Health Center. Whereas the committee wants to express recognition and appreciation for Lafayette Health Center's highest tier quality service and satisfaction as reported by students and crucial role serving the student body in and beyond combating the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as their extra coordination of testing, vaccine distribution, and vaccine tracking. Whereas enrollment decline has continued and accelerated, leading to significant declines in fee collections approximating $2 million, and there is no reason to predict that this decline will reverse in the near future. Whereas because of this decline, the committee recommends a hiring freeze and consolidation of responsibilities as vacancies open, in line with current university practices. Whereas Kansas Board of Regents has communicated an intended moratorium on tuition and fee increases, and thus entity budget decreases are necessary in alleviating the ongoing shortfalls in the overall fee budget. Whereas Lafayette Health Center has the greatest ability to generate revenue from both student and non-student faculty sources of any student services fee entity. Whereas at the proposed reductions, Lafayette Health Center has offered these points as potential impacts to reduce costs. Move non-revenue generating lab work to reference laboratories, move contact tracing work currently being done at Lafayette back to Riley County Health Department, reduce or temporarily eliminate new hiring and consolidate positions, potentially reduce hours of operation. Whereas at the proposed reductions, Lafayette Health Center has offered these points as potential impacts to restore revenue. Institute a charge for faculty services currently offered at no charge, reduce but not eliminate the gap below market price for some medication and services, place a cap on the number of free consultations after which an insurance billable fee could be applied. And finally, seek philanthropic and administrative partnerships to help meet mutual needs and goals from both donors and administrative priorities. Whereas the proposed 18 and 20% budget decreases for fiscal years 23 and 24 were mutually agreed upon with Student Health, who was an equal partner in determining those amounts. Whereas a 2-year contract is appropriate in order to return Student Health to the normal cycle of reviews, and whereas the Student Services Fee voted 12-0 to recommend to Student Senate the following Student Services Fee Agreement. Be enacted that this budget agreement goes into effect, where the main and crucial information is the allocations for fiscal years
23 and 24, which are at an 18% decrease, and the starting point for that is their original allocation before any mid-year reductions. So we took that as their starting point before shortfall callbacks, and so that first is an 18%, and the 20%, the second year, is still off of that original allocation. So it's an 18% and then 2% deeper off the original to get to the 20% at the second year.
All right. Are there any questions or corrections for the author?
Well, this,
yeah,
can I volunteer information that I think is important? Sorry, I wouldn't normally do this, just because of the significant numbers on this. That whereas clause, talking about mutual partnership and determining those amounts, I just wanted to provide context on that because I feel like that's really, really important. After we did we took 5 weeks to review Lafine this year, which was that's more than I think we probably ever have taken on a single entity before. And after lots of those weeks, it was still really tough. There's lots of information to sort through. And so where those numbers came from was a full partnership meeting between me and Lafine leadership, and we were able to just get all of the things on the table, and they ended up proposing at the end of that the 18 and 20% numbers. So I just wanted to provide that information. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Max.
Yep.
So unless there are any questions or corrections, I will seek a motion to consider Bill 59. Chair Solomon.
I move to consider Bill 59.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider Bill 59. Go ahead, Max.
Thank you all. This is Bill 21-2259, which is the fiscal year 23 and 24 decrease of the University Lafine CAPS Student Services Fee. Authored by myself and sponsored by the Student Services Fee Committee, whereas Counseling and Psychological Services, CAPS, formerly known as University Counseling Services, recently completed its merging with Lafine Health Center. Whereas the Student Services Fee Committee reviewed the request of CAPS following a 1-year contract allotted after their fiscal year 21 regular review. Whereas CAPS offers mental health services to the campus community. Whereas the Student Services Fee Committee extensively reviewed the utilization, financial situation, structural changes, and budget reduction scenarios of CAPS. Whereas the committee wants to express recognition and appreciation for CAPS's dedication to whole student well-being, especially for those currently underserved by the health system, crucial role serving the student body, and intensive efforts to adjust operations and structure to maintain and even increase impact and utilization during the pandemic. Whereas CAPS provides students with 8 free counseling sessions a semester, whereas enrollment decline has continued and accelerated, leading to significant declines in fee collections approximating $2 million, and there's no reason to predict that this decline will reverse in the near future. Whereas because of this decline, the committee recommends a hiring freeze and consolidation of responsibilities as vacancies open in line with current university practices. Whereas the Kansas Board of Regents has communicated an intended moratorium on tuition and fee increases, and thus entity budget decreases are necessary in alleviating the ongoing shortfalls in the overall fee budget. Whereas CAPS does not generate revenue, whereas CAPS remained committed to a non-fee-for-service model to maintain equitable access to services for all students, whereas CAPS gained significant cost savings in environmental and administrative support through its merger with Lafine Health Center by eliminating redundant systems and consolidating roles. Whereas the proposed 18 and 20% budget decreases for fiscal years 2023 and 2024 were mutually agreed upon with CAPS and was part of the broader context regarding Lafine and CAPS's allocations. Whereas CAPS and Lafine leadership expressed a desire to not consolidate the 2 allocations, given the priority they and students have on addressing mental health challenges on campus and the long-term protection and visibility a separate allocation affords. Whereas a 2-year contract is appropriate in order to return CAPS to normal cycle of reviews, and whereas the Student Services Fee Committee voted 12-0 to recommend to Student Senate the following Student Services Fee Agreement, where it states, same as the last one, 20% from their original allocation, 18% from their original allocation, followed by that cumulative 20, so 2% deeper on the second one.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Seeing none, thank you very much. All right, with that, we are now through with our legislative agenda for the night, and we'll move into second open period. Are there any speakers for second open period? Vice President Coker.
Sorry, gang. I promise I'll keep this brisk. But I'd first like to recognize that there were quite a few speakers tonight that are not in our normal realm of people that speak in Senate, and I think that that is terrific. I tried to acknowledge you all, but I hope you guys continue to do this. Unique voices carry a lot of weight in this body. The same group of people tend to dominate microphone time, and that's not to demean them in any way, but hearing unique voices really is a powerful opportunity here. I'd like to share, when I was first getting involved in Student Senate, there was an individual that passed a piece of legislation that kind of inspired me to create my life work to make SGA more fun. That was Nick Beasley. Commendation to Kansas for Kansas Day. As you may have been aware, and I was not, but why I didn't try and do a commendation. This weekend, Saturday is actually Kansas Day. Nick Beasley, to end the commendation, had us all sing Home on the Range, and I would like to request that we do that. I will lead.
I know that
Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play. Seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Thank you, guys. I told Michael I was going to do something bold, and I delivered.
Thank you very much, Cameron. Attorney General Hobbs.
Hi, everyone. I promise this is the last time you'll hear me speak. I wanted to formally come up and thank you guys a lot for speaking so much about the bills that I proposed. Coming in here, I do believe it's very obvious that I am not very familiar with your vernacular. I'm not familiar with your processes, and as well as I should be. And coming in here, hearing someone like that ask for speaking rights can kind of feel like a slap in the face. And I recognize that, and I'm here to say that I'm just trying to do my job. As Attorney General, I listen to the people on my boards, and I've had quite a few freshmen come up to me, ask me for information on how they can become more involved in Senate, still while serving in Judicial. I know that there's past senators also serving on Judicial too, and they just they miss this process and they wanted to come back and get more involved. And genuinely, I'm so pleased as punch. I know things failed. It doesn't matter to me that it failed. What matters to me is the fact that you guys heard it, and there was such a riveting conversation about it. And I just really appreciate the intentionality that everybody came up here and spoke with. On top of that, I was in and out of this room kind of like a flying bumblebee going from flower to flower. And I do believe a phrase of mine kind of got thrown to the wind, in a sense that I'm not extending a threat. I am not trying to start war between the branches. I value you guys so immensely much. And and basically all I was trying to do is say that even if this bill doesn't pass, that doesn't mean that future years aren't going to do the same. I never ever intended that to be a threat, and I wanted to make sure that's clear. I respect senators more than I can even imagine. I don't have the propensity to come sit in here and do what you do every Thursday evening or run a campaign. So I hope you know that, like, truly I appreciate all the time that you've granted me being up here. I hope you know that I have absolutely not an ill feeling in my heart. And if you have an issue or anything with like what I said here tonight, please come and talk to me. I want inter-branch collaboration. I hope, like, in future years, like, you are used to seeing judicial members like hanging out in the back before we go out to cases. I hope that, like, sometimes, like, a few of you pop into a case, just kind of see what it's like. Like, I really want to start a narrative where everybody is just more together. And I know that that's not going to be something that's necessarily solved this year, but I hope in future years we can start a pattern of just solid communication and getting to know one another more. So thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate all that you do.
Thank you very much, Attorney General Hobbs. Senator DeMott.
I have a question. Where do you guys hear cases? Like,
Yes, so we have our hearings generally in the CSI. With COVID, we normally have them over Zoom just because we have a few board members that are international students. So that's kind of riveting occasionally. We comply by the Kansas Open Meetings Act. So what that means is you're allowed to come in, sit and hear the initial part of our hearing. Then whenever it gets into sanctioning or any form of questioning, you will be dismissed. You can sit outside, you can sit in my office. We have a very open space. Judicial does have a reputation for being very confidential. We are, that's our job. But we are very open with any practice, any form of training that we have. I would love to share that with you, and I'm kind of sad that I'm the first one that's like judicial member that has spoken this much in a long time in Senate. Because that should be something that just like starts to be a little bit more normalized. But again, like, thank you so much for asking that question. Like, that made my day.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Annalie. Senator Booz, I had you.
Yeah, first I did want to say thank you to the people who spoke for the first time, and also thank you to Annalie for popping in and out. You know, you didn't have to do that, and I really appreciated having you here. Also, just, yeah, you know, I'm sorry I took it that way, and like, I hope we can have better communication on that front in the future. And then also, like, you know, we have a template set up for like Gus and I, and a template set up for a draft of another bill on speaking rights if you're super excited to be returning to this. But like, so if you want to work on that and kind of go in a different direction, we'd love to have your feedback on that. So if you want to contact me via email, I'm awbooz@ksu.edu. The other thing is, like, you know, open invitation for the rest of the semester. I am pretty much entirely open to, you know, I will give you my speaking rights. So feel free to ask for that. Yeah, and then, like, you know, this debate had a lot more energy than I thought it would, honestly. And so I'm glad that like overall we yeah, you know, we exchanged ideas. We did like end up shifting positions in a way, and you know, and we were generally civil, and I really appreciate that about SGA, in opposition to a lot of other things that we hear about politics.
Awesome. Thank you for your speech, Senator Booz. Chair Richenberg.
Oh yeah, and if you got any questions about my personal stuff, also feel free to email me or talk to me.
Okay, mine's not going to be as deep as everybody else's, but I'm the current president for Chimes Junior Honorary, and our applications are open. So if you're going to be a junior next year, definitely think about applying. It's really cool. You get to do like really cool service activities, get to meet a whole new people. So if you want that, I think me, Rachel, and Parker are all part of it. So reach out to any of us if you have questions, and literally just look up Chimes Junior Honorary in the application will be there. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Marta. Chair Harmon.
Very quickly, and on that note, I'm the Director of Membership for Blue Key Senior Honorary. So, 10 out of 10 would recommend. There's a lot of other friends and fellow Blue Keyers in this body. Michael, Annalie, Lily, if she's still around. There's lots of friends you can and should ask what Blue Key is and what it does. I'm not going to stand up here and give you the full spiel. If you do want that, I would absolutely love to go out to coffee. You can catch me anytime. Our applications are due 2 weeks from today. So Thursday, 11:59, February 10th, I believe. So if you are a junior going into senior year, 10 out of 10, cannot recommend it enough.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Max. And Chair Salmon, would you like to talk about Silver?
This will be the final one. If you are a freshman going into your sophomore year, Silver Key Honorary is very similar to like Junior Chimes, lots of service, leadership activities. It's pretty cool. I'm in it, and I'm also going to be applying for Junior Chimes. So
thank you to the various honoraries tonight. Senator Rook.
Got one request?
What's that?
Got one request even though they're not. Gotta finish the.
Okay, this is on a very similar note, but the applications for Snyder Fellows is open through the leadership department. It's a really cool opportunity. Get to meet with some really cool people, do some really cool things, get to learn leadership lessons from Bill Snyder. 10 out of 10 would recommend. And it's if you're going into your last year at K-State, regardless of what class you're in. Yes.
So you do get to meet Bill Snyder.
You do get to meet Bill Snyder several times, so it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Austin. And Chair Long.
Hi all. I stepped out of the room for a second, and there's a question about tax stuff, I think. My vice chair answered it perfectly. I'd just like to add, some people who read the application seem to think even though we say limited and maximum, that actually means guideline. So I guess I could bold it and highlight it maybe, but that might reduce the professionality of the form. So it's just the process of actually you can't have $50,000, sorry. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Jacob. Are there any further speakers tonight for second open period? All right, Nick, take it away with Senate shoutouts.
Alrighty. Okay. Big welcome back, Senator Scheer. Hopefully Senate is a little easier for Manhattan instead of Europe. Kate, I stan you. You're giving me flower power queen vibes, and there was a smiley face. Pass on that one. Shout out to Simone Sinek for being the first of what will hopefully be many iconic Blake moments. KU can't judge meat for the life of them. Tram is incredible. Queen Tram. Shout out to Tram for being the best dang treasurer. Pass. Blake looks like a life insurance salesman tonight. Sorry, Blake, my grandmother will be living forever. A message that I'm certainly not going to read. Nick, please read the previous shout out. Please keep election season clean. Lots of interbranch collaboration going on. Shout out to Maggie for being the branch. Shout out to Maggie, Big Branch Billman. To Senator Stout, thank you for writing the commendation. Go meet. To the new members, welcome. We are so happy to have you. Shout out to Blake for smelling. I'm sorry, Blake. Shout out to Blake's enthusiasm for director's reports. Loved the jumping. This one just says vote. The next one just says cancel Bill 54. Chair Lynn, respectfully, I'm asking for your hand in marriage. Huge shout out to intern DePaz on debating for the first time. You did a great job. Shout out to Alex DePaz for his debate. Shout out to Peyton, RJ, Alex, and Marta for their passionate debates in favor of equity tonight. Shout out to Gus, Max, and Andrew for their fiery debates. Shout out to Jacob. President Dowd for his immense neutrality regarding the judicial rights bill. Shout out to Jyoti for asking those questions. Stay curious. Shout out to Alex for standing up there and speaking. I'm so proud of you. Shout out to everyone who debated for the first time today, especially the interns. Jacob, my man. Jacob Hoffman, love the hoodie. RJ, I love your pants. Where did you get them? Shout out to everyone debating the judicial rights, speaking bills,
Shout out to Max Harmon, king of critical analysis. Good job to everyone who contributed to the lively debate tonight. To A.G. Hobbs for being the destroyer of fools. To Annalie for all of the proposals she's about to get. Hope nobody felt antagonized during the debate tonight. I love all SGA members. Shout out to the 2 new senators who were sworn in tonight. What a way to kick off your first Senate meeting. This one's a long one. Seriously, thank you to everyone on both sides of the debate tonight. Nights like tonight show the true passion behind every member of SGA, regardless of branch. Thank you all for keeping me inspired and for continuing to be the shining inspiration to others that you all are. This one is even longer. Shout out to everyone who participated in tonight's debate. It is integral to the legislative process that we all voice our concerns pertaining to the status quo and move into deliberation in a respectful manner as to legitimize these issues and propose solutions to them. You all did a great job tonight. It's all part of the process to represent our constituents in the best manner possible. This includes debate on the function of the system itself and how we may go about improving it over time. Booze needs to take the glasses off when he's saying something very serious. Looks badass. Congratulations to Leah Schindler and Professor Cranford for their introduction to Student Senate. One as a senator and the other as a faculty representative. Shout out to the interns. Oh boy. Shout out to the interns who spoke for the first time in debating tonight. Shout out to all the good debate this evening. Shout out to Cameron for always making Senate an amazing experience. You're one of the reasons I want to attend every week. Home on the Range was the best part of Senate tonight. Shout out to SGA for just being fun. Annalie is the bomb.com. Senator DeMott, do be asking relevant questions. Shout out to the really long shout out. That is all.
All right. Thank you all very much for that. For reference of legislation tonight, Bill 56 will be going to the Senate Operations Committee, Bill 57 will be going to the Senate Executive Committee, and then Bills 58 and 59 will be going to the Student Services Fee Committee. With that, we'll move into second roll call with Speaker Pro Tem Saya.
Thank you so much, Blake. Alrighty, we'll run through this one. Bannister. Here. Barron. Here. Bellamy. Here. Binkley. Blood. Here. Booze. Here. Kahlo. Compton. Here. Cranford. Here. Croslow. Here. DeMott.
Here.
Doc. Dunlap.
Here.
Insero. Here. Esslinger. Fuss.
Here.
Gann.
Here.
Glasscock.
Here.
Potzel.
Here.
Jambunathan.
Here.
Coloriquion.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
Koch.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
Lister. Long.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Mayor. McPhee. Nelson.
Here.
Pineda Gomez.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Prester.
Present.
Richenberg.
Not here.
Riffle. Rook.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Salmon. Scharnhorst. Shear.
Here.
Schindler.
Here.
Splekel.
Here.
Stout.
Here.
Sitzma.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Wallace. Warren.
Here.
Willis Jackson.
Here.
And Willis Reese. Alrighty, thanks.
All right. With that, I will now seek a motion for adjournment. Chair Lynn.
I move to adjourn until next week, same time, same place.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn until the same time, same place next week. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we will stand adjourned. Have a great night, everyone. Drive home safe. Go Cats.
I